was ranting about the Asmongold apology, my thoughts on that, and also cultural relativism. Um,
Did he apologize? I
yes,
didn't
he
watch
did. He
it.
made an apology video. I don't know if it was sincere or not. It's hard for me to judge.
Did he just say like, "I'm sorry," and like that was it, or did
No,
he?
there was a whole spiel, right? You'd have to go. I've linked it in my description. You can, after this is done, I encourage you to go watch it. Um, but yeah, my basic thoughts is the unfortunate part about the situation. I'll summarize this, and we'll get to the topic at hand. The unfortunate part of this situation is that, sincere or not, it's impossible to ignore the proverbial gun to his head that was off camera, right? That this was done under duress. So it's a disservice to him if he is sincere, because there's always going to be that shadow over it. That, okay, well, he did this, but even if he was sincere, if he didn't, it was going to be social death for him. And yeah, I just don't know how
What did he
to.
do? Like this is all seems like very quickly moving. Like what did he say that was so bad?
Did you not see the clip?
I saw some
The
clip where he's talking about how like what there's essentially like there's no civilian colonizers, but for Gaza, kind of like there's no innocent people there, something along those lines. Am I wrong?
No, it that's a weird retelling of it, but
I
basically he said, yeah,
yeah,
I get it,
tell me.
I get it. No, it's all good. Basically, he said that I think that the culture over there is worse and bad because they have genocide baked into their culture. So I do not care if they get genocided. That was his take.
It's
Okay,
quite a take.
it's a take. Yeah.
That's the take, yeah. And to his credit, he apologized, right? And he's like, "Man, no, I was an asshole. What I said was callous and wrong." And he waxes eloquent for about 20 minutes on it, right? And he's like, I've just been having a shitty time these last 2 years, and I feel I've become a worse version of myself, and I want to be better." And that was his apology.
Did
In the
he?
shadow of that, you have people telling him to kill himself, right? You have people like he lost his job at the OTK, or he stepped down, I guess, from OTK and his Starforge PC partnership or whatever. So how much of it was sincerity and how much of it was because of that gun to his head, I don't know, but I'll let people judge. That's not what we're here to talk about today. Um, is our friend Admiral Gibbs able to make it, or
He
did
said
I
he's going to
miss
be a few
something?
minutes late,
Oh,
or he
fair
didn't say.
enough.
I think he just said late
Okay, well, hopefully he gets here
because
soon.
I took him down already pre-panel.
Okay. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about it, it's a bit of a hard to define topic, but I'll just for the sake of conversation, we'll call it DEI in science, right? There has been our I hope my audience at least is familiar with Nature magazine, right? The science journal Nature, things like that. Um, they recently put out two articles. One of those articles, and it showcased how women are being overrepresented, overchosen for uh, professorial assistant professor jobs. They're just doing that. And the stream title, let me read it for you so I don't get it wrong. The article title was this: "Women are better than men at science job interviews." Well, that was the title. They also put out a post, an article about how almost all Nobel Prizes in scientific disciplines have been awarded to men. The article they put out about that, let me give you the title: "What the Nobels Are and Aren't Doing to Encourage Diversity." I hope, my dear audience, that you can see the stark difference in how these two situations have been handled by this magazine. And my question for today, my question for my dear guests and my dear viewers: are women just getting preferential treatment at this point in science? why not? We're going to first start it with Corey Campbell. We're going to hear his thoughts, and we're going to pass it to Lactoid, and then hopefully Admiral Gibbs will get here sometime, and we'll talk to him. But here you go, Corey. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I probably save most of my thoughts to, I guess, the open part. But I'm in science. Okay, I'm a biochemist. I spent a lot of time in academia, and I currently work for a biotech company. So I think I have a pretty decent perspective, although not an expert. But in some ways, there's totally, as outlined in the article, the title of the article I just read. Women are performing better, and there might be some bias now in favor of women, but also there's data to show that in some respects, let's say when it comes to publication, and also when it comes to the upper echelons at universities and faculties, I think there's some relics of, let's say, discrimination against women, but the tides might be turning, and there might be at some point discrimination towards men as more and more women enter science. And what I would say is about the Nobel, which I guess we'll get into, is, well, not that I really I'm all that crazy about Nobel. I think they're pretty much kind of stupid. But there's also history there in terms of like really there's at least one good documented case of how pretty much like a woman scientist like pretty much never taken seriously, and it's only after amassing like decades of research laughed at by her male colleagues of like, oh, you're just like kind of an idiot, and you know what shock you about that, and then they go on to win the Nobel. And I think there's many other such examples that I guess we'll get into, but I will leave it there for now.
Well, thank you for being here. It's been a while since we've had you on, and appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate you discussing this with me because I
Always a
got the
pleasure.
thoughts. Let's give it to Lactoid. What are your thoughts here? What are you thinking? What's on the mind?
So, I mean, is this the only question? Is, are women favored? Because I think that it appears to demonstrate that they are, right? The at least the article. This is from Nature, right, Corey?
Yeah, it's an editorial though. To be clear.
And I'm gonna, you're in the science field, and I'm gonna defer a little bit here, but reading it, I found something interesting about just the way certain things are phrased in terms of, well, some areas, men have an advantage. But I think that the specific thing here, when it says overall women were an advantage, 2/3 of women in the sample received at least one job offer compared with half the men. The advantage is particularly notable because men had slightly more first author publications in highly ranked journals. So what it appears to indicate is that despite the fact that women have less, I guess, credentials, if we're measuring credentials in terms of publications, they're still getting more interviews. And I think it's interesting how they phrase that better at interviews as opposed to jobs giving them preferential treatment, right? Like how convenient, right? Like this would be like, in the 1930s, like white men are just better at interviewing. Are they? Are they? Are they really better at interviewing? Or do they get the job despite not having as many credentials as perhaps like a black applicant or a woman applicant? I think that, I mean, you guys know my thoughts on affirmative action and DEI generally, and all these kind of non-meritorious ways of approaching things. I hate all of it. I think it's bullshit, and I think women have had it too good for too long.
Too long, like from day one, going back
at least from 2014.
Going back 6,000 years as a creationist.
What are your thoughts on this? Because again, I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but I echo Lactoid sentiment here, just from reading the article itself, just from watching how these two different situations, which are very similar, right? In both cases, there's a panel of people who are selecting what they think is the best, whether that be Nobel Prize or whether that be a job interview, right? Or a job application or an offer. In one sense, they're saying, oh, women just seem to be better at it. In the other, it's like, well, no, there has to be some structural issue here because it could not be the case that men are just better at winning Nobel Prizes. That would be weird, right? That'd be sexist to say. So, Corey Campbell, answer for your crimes. You're the scientist here. What do you think?
Yeah, it's all down to me. I put in the word to all of science, say, hey, stop hiring men. And that's why, so, well, also, I think a point that might be informative is So there's a talking point that STEM is dominated by men, okay, and like STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But okay, when I'm talking about in my mind the real sciences, okay, the life sciences such as biology, biochemistry, immunology, pretty much the life sciences, those are heavily dominated by women. Okay, I think it's like 60-70%. Pick your discipline: immunology, microbiology, molecular biology, biochemistry. It's like, yeah, it's pretty much at least 60, if not more, percent women.
Yeah, they're just
And
better at it.
well, I don't know about better, but
I mean,
definitely.
look, if we're using the standard that science is, that nature at least is setting, they're obviously just better, right?
Sure, going by that logic, but I mean, I take issue with the editorial. Like, I'd say they're clearly more interested. Okay, like I think that's pretty clear. And so I'm speculating. I don't actually know for sure, but I think as the hiring committees, okay, tend to skew more female. Okay, there might be some bias, and also like women just might interview better. Like I'll also be honest with like it wouldn't surprise me if just men don't have these social skills. I think that's a pretty clear talking point.
That's ridiculous. What are you talking? What is this bullshit? Don't have the social skills. What is this? Absolutely not. Men are, in fact, we can go through this. Pretty sure men are much more confident when it comes to speaking up for themselves, right? And in an interview, that can be important.
So assertiveness and confidence are two separate things. At least
I think men are rated more highly in both of those, if I'm not mistaken, though.
Well, I would say men self-rate, but then I would say there's also like we can get into confidence and like what is actual confidence, because I would say men have what I would say we'll call overall on average fragile self-esteem, of like pretty much like narcissism, of like sure on the surface level like they're arrogant and they appear to have, but like deep below the surface, buried, okay, there's a deep fear of inadequacy, or pretty much
a drive to do better. No, I agree. I wanted to read you something here from the Nature article, Corey, and I want you to answer for this. Quote, the finding that women in this sample were more likely to receive job offers than were men was, quote, pleasant to see, says Yvette Pearson, a STEM education researcher and the former vice president of DEI at the University of Texas in Dallas. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's pleasant to see this trend of affirmative action, or no?
Well, for a brief moment in time, like this, I think this is how things go historically. Of like, there's a pendulum swing. Of like, sometimes there's an over course correction. Just like I have no problem saying like that might have occurred with affirmative action, and then now maybe is the time of like to rebalance, where now maybe the pendulum could recalibrate and be more balanced. But I don't disagree with the sentiment of like, given the overall historical trends, and I think it's pretty clear in science, well, I think it's also pretty clear historically that whatever, go back 100 years, like a woman couldn't get a university degree, like in science, go back to.
And I don't even necessarily disagree with that. This reminds me a little bit of how the UN measures sexism. I forget which UN organization it is. I think it's like the UN, like with some women's UN organization. And they have like a gender equity index. By country. You can go right now on their like the UN's website and find what I'm talking about. I can probably find it after this.
Like the Gini coefficient for income inequality, something like that.
And just so we're clear, like the number, like the lower the number, the better, right? If you get to like a perfect 0, it's like perfect equity, and if you get to 1, it's like perfect inequality or whatever. The problem is the way they measure it is in any way that women are better off than men. This lowers the number. So like in like, for example, Armenia, women are like 2 times more likely to get college degrees or something like that, maybe 3 times more likely. And this is solely seen as a good thing. Like this contributes to equity. This is just like an equity factor. Which is sort of, again, it's like, okay, it reminds me a little bit of the old adage, like, when I make the money, it's my money. When you make the money, it's our money, right? When it's in my favor, it's equity. When it's in your favor, it's sexism. Isn't that kind of what's happening here?
I mean, in my mind, if you squint hard enough, sure, but I don't know that the parallel draws exactly. Where again, I think this is largely like historical in terms of like given I think a decent history of like whatever who wields the levers of power, and even just on emissions committee, it's like yeah, this is like course correction. Like I don't see it as an issue right now.
Now,
Like
as a motorcycle rider, though, a course overcorrection can be incredibly dangerous. Wouldn't you agree? Like like why are they celebrating this? That's my question. Like the fact that they're celebrating, like if they were talking like you and they were like, this appears to be a bit of a course correction, but it's good that like this part of inequality has been overcome. Now we got to swing the pendulum back a little bit, give men some more opportunities. That's important. Okay, right. But that's not the rhetoric that I'm seeing here, at least not from Yvette, right? The rhetoric is, oh, thank God we're finally ahead. Thank God we're finally better. It's kind of a weird way of viewing the world.
well, obviously I don't know the intention of what they meant, but I'm speculating that the overall sentiment is like the measures to increase women in science have been working. Of like pretty much like the encouragement and building up, and so it's good to see like in terms of a backed up in data of like whatever we see a spike, and now like a spike maybe in an overtaking or like literally an overtaking, at least when it comes to like job offers, right? Where we now we have the empirical data, at least to demonstrate, okay, the measures that we've used to encourage more women in science and to be more inclusive and to encourage diversity, that has paid off. And now maybe it's we like. I would be concerned if, like, yes, if the rhetoric now changes, like, we got to keep going. Like, now we need to like push men out. Like, obviously, as a male in STEM, I don't want to be pushed out. And so it's like, yeah, if the trend continues, okay, and the rhetoric switches of like, yeah, it's just everything needs to be women in
Are
science, and that's the only thing
you
that matters.
and,
Like,
and I'll ask you this, Corey. Are you worried that if you are going are you worried that if you agree with lactoid too much, for lack of a better term, that you will be pushed out, right? That you will be ostracized, villainized, and receive less job offers, less job opportunities, and be um, basically oppressed a little bit, right? Are you worried about that at all? Do you find that to
oh,
be a concern?
if your overall sentiment is like, I got to appear optically like I fall in line, since I'm I'm technically largely self-employed now, and also I have no problem saying that I think my competency speaks for itself, and I have a track record in terms of like of the people that have worked with me long term. I think my reputation speaks for itself. Of like people can recognize overall competence, and there are people at companies out there that want me at their company.
I
Uh,
have no doubt, Corey, that you're competent in what you do, right? We've talked about this. I have no doubt about that. The problem is, according to this article, being competent, like even being more competent, you're still at a slight disadvantage now. Like, by the way, slight is like generous, 2/3 compared to half. I mean, that's a little bit of a disadvantage, right? That is like a healthy chunk where you're going to have potentially people who are less qualified than you getting positions that maybe you want to get.
well, there's a larger conversation in terms of so like you brought up like as it's highlighted in the article of like yeah, despite men having more first author publications, especially in the prestige journals like Cell, Nature, Science. Those are like the big three, as in like virtually everyone who's in graduate school. Like if you can get a publication out in Cell, Nature, or Science, like that's what you want. But then there's large conversation of like, well, like I don't want to necessarily get into like our publications good? Should we continue this model of like publish or perish and all that stuff? Of like we like for you that wants to have this merit-based system, it begs the question of like, well, what is merit in science? Okay, as of right now, the metric is like whatever H-index, number of publications. Does that actually establish merit? I think there's a reason why. We can also look at I don't know the data, but look at the researchers who are now like fraud is pretty rampant in science, or at least there's a potentially a growing
In journals
fraud.
generally, yeah.
Right. And I don't know the breakdown in terms of demographics and
More
gender.
women in science, more fraud in science.
Well,
I don't know. Are these
It's a
related?
correlation. It's a correlation, Corey, and it's a scientific term, right? What about that?
well, so I'd ask the question. I don't know that I'd be curious to see the data of what
I
is the
was
gender
kind of
breakdown of those who have been like demonstrated fraud in science. I suspect
I
it's
was
largely
Well,
men.
wait,
joking,
didn't it just
but
come out that Kamala committed plagiarism or something? Am I wrong on that?
You're not a
oh
scientist.
yeah, that's not the science thing. But there are plagiarism within science publications. But this is a comment made by one of my chatters, and they're referencing the article, and they'd like you guys to discuss this. And we're gonna give it to Gibbs first. Welcome, Gibbs. Nice to see you. Hope you're okay.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope my tech issues slow down a little bit today.
You know what? We're glad to have you. Tech issues regardless. Thank you for being here. This is the passage that they're quoting. That might be partly because men are more likely than women to apply to jobs even if they don't meet all the required qualifications. Pearson says. Women might go into interviews with a higher level of confidence, she adds, because in reality, they have stronger CVs. What are our thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that might be part of it. Like, this is all speculation, right? At the end of the day, like, I can see that playing a factor. Whether it's a huge factor, like whether it's enough to explain this, I would say probably not. Where, like, yeah, I have no problem biting the bullet in terms of uh, like there might be men who on paper look highly credentialed, but I think more and more it's being recognized that maybe publications, maybe this metric isn't the best metric, and the best researchers aren't coming from necessarily those who have publications in Cell, Nature, or Science, because there are clear documented cases, okay, of like, well, yeah, this, like I think in the past 2 years, like the president of Stanford like had to resign because, or not had to, but they voluntarily stepped down as a result of like a committee review because like yeah, it pretty much demonstrated that they had a pretty large track record of at the very least scientific misconduct that they got away with for like quite a long time, and so there might be something, there might be a reevaluation of like how do we judge merit in science.
Let's give it to Gibbs. What are your thoughts here, Gibbs?
Yeah, I mean,
Open
I
this
think
up.
that's really interesting. Whenever we say how do we judge merit, I mean, I think we can judge merit by basis of, I hate to use the word in itself, what merit is, right? Like merit means you've accomplished something. We can look and see what people accomplish. I think like this is a like a kind of a shenanigans argument Corey's making. Really, to be totally honest, when I look, like, I can't speak for like the science fields, but I can speak at least for the fields I've experienced. One of them being the legal field, and I know when I went to go into law school, right? I definitely, when first we came in, and there was this definitely push for this DEI kind of agenda where we want to get certain people, certain groups to have an advantage, to be going ahead. And it turned out, for lack of a better term, way to put this, shitty lawyers. They were bad lawyers, and their clients ended up suffering. Like, and that's what it seems like overall. And it seems lately they've had a pushback kind of against this kind of thing. And I think that whenever we do things for the sake of inclusivity, yeah, that's a problem. I think that just for, if that's the sole value to do it for, yeah, that's no good. So as for the specific question you're asking, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I think that men are more likely to go after things they want. I think in terms of like working spheres, I feel like that culture is something that's taught from a young age, or at least they used to. Where it's like, hey, if you want to get something done, you're gonna have to do it yourself and go after it, and not be like gifted something. So I mean, maybe that's a cultural thing we need to do, but I don't think we should be implementing that as a policy per se.
I also want to say that it seems like that speculation is contradicted by the facts put forward earlier in the Nature article, where it's stating that, look, maybe it's because they have stronger CVs, but the only metric of actual merit that's brought up is saying that men actually had, or better in, they had more publications, first author publications in highly ranked journals. We can have a conversation about what merit is, and perhaps, if there is article doesn't, that's the only element of merit that's actually outlined in the article. But if there's a conversation as to, well, the women are coming in with incredibly high, test scores and GPAs, and they're, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, maybe that's like some level of merit. But the fact that that's not discussed makes me skeptical that that is the case. And I think that, the idea of journal publication still actually has some level of merit, right? At
No,
least more
absolutely. Like, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
at least more than gender, right? The idea of like, oh, this person's getting published in Nature magazine, that's impressive, right? That's pretty impressive. Now, and look, I have some experience with journals, and I can say that, yeah, most of the submissions that come in are not good, and they need to be weeded out, and a lot of them are trash. I absolutely understand that. It's about finding, good articles, and really the good articles are the ones that you pull. And it demonstrates like a level of reading comprehension, a level of writing comprehension, a knowledge of the subject, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, what The article just said, "Oh, they interview better." What is that like? How? Like, do they? It's saying their CVs are better, but yet they're first author published less.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
in what way are their CVs actually better?
so I'll maybe try to draw on your experience like as a lawyer, although like I don't know, I don't only share what you're comfortable in sharing, but I assume you work with at an institution with other lawyers, as in you work with a team of lawyers, right? Is that a fair assessment? Like you're not the
Yeah.
only person at your firm. You're
Right.
not self-employed. And so again, I'm speculating. Okay, so I have nothing to back this up, but I can imagine a scenario of like if you're the department of whatever biochemistry, chemistry, okay, and you're hiring faculty, okay, and like yeah, you can come across a CV just like in your law firm, you could probably come across like on paper they look like an amazing lawyer, but then you have to ask yourself the question of like, are they a good fit for the team, right? As in like, do they have the quote unquote soft skills, right, to fit in? Where if they're just like belligerent, or they just come across as a jerk, like you might be willing to overlook sometimes that, and the credentials speak for themselves. But I'm sure you've come across or had the experience of like, yeah, like on paper they seem great, but just like they just seem like an awful person to have on the team. Is that
Of
like
course, for
totally?
sure, absolutely. I
Yeah, but that in and of itself is a skill, right? Like
I don't know if that
that's
fits like the gender angle though that you're aiming for, because in my experience, it tends to be like women attorneys who are much more insecure with their role and thus behave in a way that's very like to try to prove that they're not insecure, which is much more aggressive. The most
Right.
aggressive attorneys I've ever worked with have been women by far.
Uh, well, so that might be an overcompensation, but I would say I would bring up overall. Who would you put the label of who tend to be more pro-social overall? Do you think it's 50?
It's not clear. It's not clear.
Yeah.
50-50
Okay.
probably. Maybe a slight edge to men, but not clear.
It's
I
slight.
would say it's men. I mean, it's men. Like, I mean, just today, I've gotten 4 texts from 4 different men in different fields asking me to come to different mixers, like, and just social things. Like, I never get texts from
Well,
women, or when I do, it's like,
yeah, I'm not.
Hold up.
Talking. No. That's
What
not.
is this
That
a
you said the
self-report?
social
Like,
aspect,
women
just
don't talk to
social.
me. What are we doing
If they
here,
were
Gibbs? Go
sociable,
ahead.
they'd
Well,
talk to
okay,
me.
this is the point. He just made the point that, oh, who's more pro-social? Well, if
No,
you're talking
as,
to a
as a
social,
psychological metric, that's not what they like.
well,
We're talking about, let's say, agreeableness. Okay, that's
sure,
typically
agreeable.
what.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying with this, right? But part of this is the networking within the field, and you're talking about why these women aren't getting advanced, or men getting advanced, and sure, agreeableness is part of it, but so is like your social skills in general, and that's why I'm bringing up the mixer thing, right? Like I know,
Don't you think that there might be a valid reason that women don't reach out as much to their men colleagues in texts and DMs?
No, I mean,
things like that?
I get like about one a week from like one girl, and then that she's like a real estate agent. She's always inviting me to random stuff, and then I get about 4 or 5 from different men, and that give me a variety all the time. And then I go and look on my Facebook or my Instagram, and I see women complaining about why can't I find anybody to come to these? What's going on here? And I'm just like, well, because you're not reaching out, you're not doing that, like you're not talking to people, you're not advancing your career, you're not taking any gumption and doing anything. You just want stuff handed to you, and that's what this seems like right here. It's the same thing. Yeah, you might not like that you have to go reach out or talk to people or communicate people within your field or people near a field adjacent, but that's kind of how it works. I just don't understand why like y'all are laughing about something that's like a real part of everyday life in the business world, or even I would assume the science world. Do you not speak to your colleagues in science to compare notes? Like,
Yeah, yes, we do. But so I think there's just like a misunderstanding. We have to sort of clarify what do we mean by like pro-social behavior. Like generally speaking, at least in the literature that I come across, they're talking about like whatever empathy, compassion, like theory of mind. They're not talking about like are women or men like reaching out to their friends and sending texts. That's not necessarily what I mean. Oh, just like
yeah, I get that. I get that. But I'm saying that where would you categorize like networking in that kind of situation? Would that
uh,
not be under a social like aspect of that or no?
if anything, I don't know for sure. I'm speculating, but I would think probably on average women are probably better at networking.
Yeah, I disagree. But
But this could be the case. The problem is like controlling for this would be really difficult, and we already know that institutions will abuse this in order to reach certain quotas they're trying to meet. Right. So the best example I can think of is the Ivy Leagues when discriminating against Asian Americans. they would routinely categorize, black applicants as having more dynamism and being more charismatic and having that, gold factor and having, oh, they're so good, despite the fact that oftentimes the scores and all the empirical metrics were just overall worse. And then the Asian applicants would be seen as, oh, they're not quite as exciting or dynamic, et cetera. And and the results of that speak for themselves, right? I mean, 2019, only about a third of black applicants to Harvard would have gotten in on their own merit, absent some kind of affirmative action program, right? 2/3 of them got in because of that affirmative action program. And of course, this is because they're looking to meet a certain like racial quota. Like they can't say quota, but they're looking to reach a certain quota. And I know this because I have been in these meetings and overheard some stuff that perhaps I shouldn't have overheard. But it's absolutely the case that these organizations have in their mind a certain percentage of diversity that they're looking for, and they have to find a way to do it, right? There's a reason why, in response to the recent Supreme Court case, banning affirmative action, really it didn't. The Ivy Leagues basically came out publicly and said, yeah, we're gonna do everything we can to make sure we can get around this. We're gonna really look at these exceptions that the Supreme Court allows us to use. And I think that we can't hide our head in the sand and pretend that perhaps scientific organizations and employers aren't going to be doing the same thing.
Well,
Yeah,
let
they're
me
going to
ask
rate women
directly.
so high, and they're going to rate
Yeah,
men.
well, let me ask
low.
directly, like the panel directly, and we'll start with Corey, and I want to hear all your answers. Though, do we think that scientific journals, scientific companies, corporations, etc., are giving women, regardless of whether you think they should or not, regardless of why they're doing it, do you think that they're giving women preferential treatment? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think so.
I, as someone who's gone through multiple hiring processes and has seen a little bit in admissions committees and all that stuff, I don't. At least I don't see it yet. I have not been involved in the hiring process for faculty, so I can't speak
Fair
to
enough.
that.
I would say, yeah, absolutely. They absolutely get preferential treatment. I mean, across the board. And I would say, even more indicative of this is that we're seeing, and this is what's really concerning, is that it seems like this has been one of the first times in our history where science is like kind of being taken over by an agenda, right? And where science is actually being changed, due to this agenda. Like they're finding what's the word, like I can't think of the word, where they're finding basically positive results. There's the result seeking instead of actually looking for data, like kind of thing, and that's concerning because I think it's a direct, I see a direct correlation and maybe even a causation because of the DEI hiring practices within the scientific community and maybe at large in the whole community at large.
Well, you say science taken over by like, are you talking about just DEI ideology or something else?
Sure. I think that's one component of it. I mean, look at like psychology, for example. I mean,
Well, I don't
we look.
it's a science personally, but I'm elitist.
Sure, but we look at like psychology per se, right? We look at that, and I mean, this is a soft science, whatever. But we go in there, we see, hey, okay, we used to diagnose things one way, and now all of a sudden, due to like social norms, things are being pushed a whole different way. Going, oh, well, you can't talk about this being a disorder anymore, et cetera, or that's taboo. And we're seeing this like a whole push to like normalize certain behaviors that used to be treated, and I think that's concerning. And I see this across the field. I kind of see this result-seeking behavior.
Well, so I take your point. Maybe in psychology, so I can't speak to like the social sciences because I'm not in that. I only go by what's published. But like, yeah, I think those concerns are valid concerns. Maybe with the social sciences, I don't think that's like bleeding over. At least I haven't seen it yet. Of like, I think the hard sciences like
Well,
are pretty.
let me ask, what's your and I know this is probably a hard question to answer, and I apologize for that.
Oh, nothing to apologize for.
Right? You say that you don't see any preferential treatment, but we look at the results, right? We can look at well, the evidence presented in the article, right, that we've all read, and also seeing how they treat when men have an advantage, such as a Nobel Prize. Is that not at least strong evidence saying that, okay, yeah, maybe they are getting preferential treatment?
Yeah, like so to the article, I'm not going to necessarily dispute the article. Like maybe at faculty level, like I could potentially see that. Do I see it as currently like a huge problem? If I would agree with you, if If it reverses and faculty is like 60, 70% women, like I would take issue with that. I would say that, okay, well, we have to now push, we have to do what they did for women, got to do for men.
Do
So
we though? Isn't that just gonna keep that pendulum swinging back and forth, right? Like over and over again. Like if
well,
it's
no, like
causing problems, why are we using this tool, right?
well, this might be a fundamental difference, but I think there is intrinsic value to diversity to some respect. Not
Intrinsic?
yeah, as in diversity is a value, at least a value that I have to some extent. Not diversity at all costs, okay, but like yes, there's something there's an intrinsic value to diversity. Yes. Just like when you're talking about, I think this is a potentially good example. When you talk about collective intelligence, okay, and there's not a lot of research. This is, I think, emerging research. But okay, most people have the intuition of like, if you're trying to solve a problem, just gather the highest IQ people, right? As in, like, if you have an overall IQ, a collective IQ of like 1,000, that will perform better than a collective IQ than like 900. That doesn't seem to be borne out, at least in the data that I've seen so far. Like if you have a diverse team, okay, that actually they actually do on average outperform just like the raw high IQ people, because there's a value to diversity.
So I'd love to see that research. After the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action, there were some people that were citing. I think there were some amicus briefs that were citing research, and there was other amicus briefs that were refuting that research. And I read both, and to me, the research on diversity actually having empirical benefits appears to be very weak. And
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
why
of
it's like
a lot of the
mixed
evidence
or
actually
weak.
appears very, very weak, actually, to the point where, like, when you actually read the studies, and maybe you got a different one that I haven't read, but there was one that I read that it was highlighting the benefits, and it said literally one of the metrics was dynamism. That was one of the metrics. And I was like, okay, well, does it increase test scores? No, they fall. Does it increase any other empirical metric of work? No, it doesn't. The studies didn't seem to indicate that, at least the ones that I read. Like in weird subjective metrics like dynamism and excitability and shit that's just like, well, I guess if you want to make up a term and then say that there's more of it, of course you can do that. But I don't think diversity is intrinsically like a good thing. Like if you do have, like, the study does show that.
I didn't say intrinsic. I said it has some intrinsic value. I'm not saying like maybe I'm just not phrasing it properly. But like in some contexts, like it is good to value diversity and maybe prioritize that to some extent.
Because it might lead to other, like, tack-on benefits.
Speaking of value, intrinsic value, I'm going to read some of these super chats and get some value from my stream.
I hope you get a lot of value.
Yeah, me too.
Make sure it's
keep giving me
diverse.
value. Okay, it's not that diverse. There's only 2, but they've done 90% of today's super chats, which is fine with me. They can continue to do so. $5 from Slong and Stew. My goodness, I just listened to the first 90 seconds of Asmon's apology. I don't think he is sorry, but I don't think he knows why he is in trouble. $5 from Slong and Stew. Could we have Lactoid switch his camera so the blue flag is back on the right side?
My camera is how it always is.
Yeah. $2 from Slung and Stew. Admiral Gibbs joined, my favorite socialist. $5 from Audacity. All praise to our Lord and Savior Admiral Christ of Gibbs Reel. And then $10 more from Audacity. The major issue with this is that none of this is happening organically. It all starts with an infiltration of industries by ideologues, and moves from there. The way it was before was natural. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I want to just I want to say, like, and again, I could be moved if Corey does have a study, and I'll have to read into it because every single study I've seen that claims this turns out to be bunk. But if Corey does have a study showing that there is a actual empirical benefit to, like, workflow or like product results or test scores or anything that we can, like, actually look at to, like, diversity as measured by what DEI is trying to improve, I could potentially be open to this. But if that's not the case, like, let's say it just is the case that, like, nursing being made up of like 98% women, like, that's just fine. Like, nursing is just as efficient. In fact, maybe with having more women there as nurses, it's more efficient. Then we would agree. Then we should just keep it. We should just leave it that way. No push to get men in there. Why do we have to?
I think there should be a push to get men in there personally.
Why? Wait, hold on. But if there's no benefit, why? Why do we care?
Well, it depends on how you're measuring benefit, because I agree with you. These things are difficult, maybe impossible to measure. Of like, diversity, and if you're just looking at test scores, like you can only assess like what you can measure, and something is just like difficult to measure, at least currently.
Only assess what you can measure. That's right. That's a very astute scientific observation.
You know what else I can measure? The $10 that Pumpkin King has given me to say my potential super chats keep going over the word limit, but take some money. Thank you for your money. Thank you for your super chat. Respond.
Like, if you can't measure it, like essentially it doesn't exist. Okay, at least that I think is the overall guiding principle, at least in the sciences. And so that's why I say like the collective intelligence, that's emerging research, and I'm not gonna I would not die on that hill, because it's pretty new, and it's difficult to measure and assess. But what I would say also, it's like, I think consciousness is a good example. Like, how do we measure consciousness? Okay, we study it. Okay, and we know that it's a thing.
Corey. Let's just take a step back for a second. You have someone like me who's saying, if you can show me empirical metrics that these discriminatory actions work, I could be open to them. Let's say, like, I have this position. Now, let's say there's two people standing in front of me. One person saying, I think diversity is intrinsically good for its own sake. And then you have another person saying, no, I just think white people should be in all these jobs just for its own sake, intrinsically. Which of them is right and why?
Yeah, like, that's what I agree with you. You would have to go with the empirics. Okay, absolutely. But then
hold up. No, Lactoid, I love you, buddy, but no, there is value, and I'll tell you the value. I don't know if we can measure this. I'm not a scientist, right? But there is value, and if there are obstacles put in place to different intrinsic group or immutable characteristic groups, like if being a woman makes it harder, right, to get into certain fields, I think there is value, even if it's better for the workflow if it was all men, right? Even if the unit operated at a more productive capacity, it was all men. I think that there is value in removing those obstacles so that if they want, women can go into these fields. I think that there is value in that. I don't know how we measure that exactly, but I think that the
no, we got to go further than that though, Wick. Let's say for example, let's just say that a workforce was better being all men, like the example you used. But do you think that like affirmative effort to discriminate against men to get women in that field, do you think that would be a good idea?
No, I don't think like that's where I would disagree with Corey. I don't think that it is intrinsically okay to for the what I call aesthetic diversity, right? It's the aesthetic of being diverse. I don't think that's there. If no men are wanting into a field and no men are applying, then I mean, they just don't want to do that, and that's fine.
Well, yeah,
I'm fine with that too.
I'm not advocating necessarily that there should be like this active discrimination against to prioritize diversity, or like to bring in diversity for diversity's sake. I am just saying like some of the measures. That's why like I'm
the
okay
measure
with.
we're talking about today is women are receiving interviews and job offers at interviews at a rate that suggests that there might be some sort of discriminatory practices, or to phrase another way, that one group is being given preferential treatment simply due to their immutable characteristics because they have no balls, okay, right? Because they have
Presumably,
right? They are being preferenced over the non-boob havers.
Well, yeah. So just like I think maybe Lacto with the argument of like you should not look at an institution that's all white and assume that there's active racism there. Okay, I think it's the same thing where it's like it's a valid question. but just the numbers, just look at the raw numbers, doesn't mean that there's active discrimination against men. Again, maybe the hiring committee is just like looking at something else.
Well, that's true, but there is something within civil rights law. It's so there's immediate like individual discrimination that's very odd. Like you call someone the N-word during an interview, not good. You're probably going to get sued. Pretty bad idea. But there's also
pro tip: if you're in an interview, don't call someone the N-word.
So especially all the men out there, take these interview tips from Lactoid.
Yeah, don't say the word. Don't do it. Generally, don't do it, but don't do it during an interview. That's for sure. But the name of the concept is escaping me right now for some reason. But there is a concept where if you have an industry, for example, a factory or a workplace, that has enough employees to be under the jurisdiction of the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, hold on. People are saying that Lactoid learned that the hard way. Is that true? Can you confirm or deny?
No. I don't. I've never done that. Okay, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
But if let's just say, for example, you had a factory and they were hiring just white people, right? Disparate impact is the concept of what it's called, and the government notices, hey, based on the demographics of the area, this company should be hiring a greater proportion of black people, but they're not. Work for it, like manager. What's going on? At that point, it's the manager's duty, like the responsibility of the manager, to prove to the government that they're not being racist. And so, if, like, for example, the government notices, hey, you're giving preferential treatment to white applicants, why? Like, and then you have no explanation other than they interview better. I don't know what to say. You're probably going to get in a lot of trouble. Seriously, like this is something that you got to be really careful about if you're an employer. Just knowing the demographics of the area that you're in and the types of interview, like the applications that you receive and the interviews that you do, because you got to be able to show that you're actively not being racist. And what Wick is saying is, at least on face value here, it seems like men with higher credentials are being turned down at a higher rate. So what's the explanation? Isn't the burden of proof then on the employers to say, here's why we're hiring women at a higher rate? Like, it seems like their responsibility.
What makes this hard, and then I'll let you respond, Corey. And thank you for the $2 from Audacity to say, what if it's a job at Racism Inc.? Okay, fair enough. Play to the crowd, buddy. You do you. But what makes this hard is we're talking about a field, so it's not just one company. It's not just one corporation. It's not just one entity or institution. It is an entire field. And again, it does make me wonder, are there biases at play? Because there seems to be evidence that there is based on this.
Yeah, so
I don't know how strong that evidence is to you, right? But this is at least some evidence that something fucky wucky's going on over in science land. Okay.
Well, yeah, whether it's legally feasible or not, I don't know. But I'm all for transparency of like I think hiring committees should be more transparent. Like, this is the reason why we're hiring you, and if it's more of like a public process, I'm not against that. Although, also what I would say is, in response to Lackley, I think I don't know if you're just like whatever arguing the legal process versus like your philosophical beliefs. From what I understand, like I think philosophically, like you're okay for a company just like to hire for like whatever of like aren't you like like this is philosophically aligns with you of like if they prefer men for no reason other than they're men.
Hold on. Yes, just to be clear, I do think though that when you have this weird system where it's like you can discriminate against white men, but you can't discriminate against people who are not white men, and that's an unfair rule proposed by the government. But I would give them a lot more credit if they just came out and said, "Yeah, we want less men. We just want to hire women. Fuck you." I would be like, it seems like maybe we should like equalize these rules a little bit, but good on them for being brazen about it.
Well, yeah, so that would be the divide of like if it was a more transparent process, which I think it should be, where someone wants to look at what the hiring committee's actually making their judgment on, I think that should be like accessible, especially if these are like some of these universities are public institutions, at least in Canada. Okay, we don't know their hiring process. I think that might be a problem. Where it's like, I would be on the opposite side of lactoids than philosophy of like, But
Yeah, I know you don't agree with it. Like if it was white people, right? Like let's say Racism Inc. That was the company that was brought up earlier by one of your super chatters, right, Wick? Let's say Racism Inc. is founded,
Racism Inc., yeah.
and they just want to have just white applicants. They just want to have white men working there, and they're like, you know what? Nobody else need apply. I don't think you'd be for that being legal, would you, Corey?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Can Racism Inc. be allowed to only hire the whites?
Oh, yeah, no, that would
go.
not fly with me.
Yeah.
Joe, how you doing, buddy?
What are you talking about? Come on. Sorry. Kamala Harris want to go and embarrass her ass on Fox News, and y'all are just talking about DEI 2024?
Well, hey, I went live
DEI,
early.
Kamala Harris, it works.
Look, I went live early because I wanted to discuss the Asmongold thing. I haven't seen Kamala Harris's interview yet.
I'm so sorry
I can't
for that.
speak to that. But we are talking about DEI when it comes to science, specifically when it comes to gender. Recently, Nature put out an article saying, and I want to quote this article directly, and this is the title. I'll read it to you. Give me a second.
Yep.
And also, it's an editorial. Sorry to interrupt, but like, yeah, it's just one person. It's an opinion piece, basically.
It's in Nature.
Yeah.
Nature, right?
It is.
Women are better than men at science job interviews. And they also released an article very recently. The Nobel, because again, they put out a tweet saying the Nobel Prizes are going in almost entirely to men. And the article about that is what the Nobels are and aren't doing to encourage diversity. So the question of the day is, why are these two situations treated so differently? Where we have a group of women who are outperforming, and the article is stating, oh, they must just be better, right? And then we look at another situation where we have a bunch of men winning an award, and the problem is, why is this not diverse enough, right? Why is there some kind of systemic issue where a reason that men are outperforming in this? And the topic of the day is DEI, and is it something we should do in science and things like that? It's all related. So that's where we're at. I hope I caught you up. Welcome to the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you need to recognize that, especially for science, the science is faulty because of the relationship between knowledge and the object, and then whatever mode of study that you have for that. So if you have a bunch of men determining what's going on with women, it's pretty reasonable to say that there's probably some aspects about being a woman that a bunch of men in a room making decisions are not going to understand or even be able to properly contextualize. So I do understand the importance of having a diverse set of people in a jobs environment. That could be, obviously, we're talking about science, so you're going to need people in all different spectrums of whatever identities are. And even then, just by virtue of the identity being in the room, doesn't mean that they're going to actualize whatever thing in the context of science. And this is true in most other fields as well. I do think there's something to say about, sure, women are outperforming men in interviews. I'd have to look at the editorial to understand what that means practically, because you can have a good interview and not get accepted in the job in the first place. But I guess I would say they're treated differently because the context is different. The context as to why women are doing better in interviews, but then men are the predominant recipient of X or Y prize. It's important to investigate that and look into that. Because it's not unreasonable to think that there's potential bias within that, because that's really what these prizes are. These prizes are based upon bias of an individual.
Well,
it doesn't matter
how interview not.
Well, what does that's what I mean about context. What does better performance mean in an interview?
Yeah, pretty much what it is. And also, I think another thing to add, that's a potentially piece of the puzzle, it's I think maybe one of the reasons why that person in the editorial said, it's good to see this data or good to see this trend is because despite this, even maybe going so far as despite the potential active discrimination against men, women are still largely underrepresented when it comes to like full tenure track faculty positions. Of like, I don't think it's even close. It's like still like 80-20 men or like 70-30 men when it comes to science faculty. And so that also might be a reason why they want to see this promising trend of like they need more of the job
Men are
offers.
just better at it, right?
Well, this is tenure track. Like if they've been there for 50 years, to change the trends takes a long time. They either have to retire or die.
Most times they just die. So it's like, or for better or worse, there's some type of faculty position that is higher up within the administration, and then they just quietly transition to that. Because I'm sure you can probably speak to this a little bit, Corey. Maybe you like to it, where it's like once, especially at the university level, once you get tenure or some type of cushy thing that protects you, they will sit on that forever. They're not trying to give that up. But hey, I don't know if y'all talked about this, but I'm totally fine with men losing jobs for the sake of women. Like, I don't think it's much difficult of a hill to die on. Like,
We're gonna give that.
I don't know how to break it to you.
Cook, you
Like,
can land your plane, but afterwards, Lactoid has.
I mean, that's it. Like, if you're looking to have let's say you're looking to have a more diverse environment of individuals, right? Let's say you have 100 positions, too many white guys. You're gonna have to fire some white guys. This is how it's gonna line up. So it's gonna mean that like the way that you approach hiring, the way that you approach practices at the workplace, there's something within your job that's prioritizing. We'll normalize to say men. Like we'll normalize say like there's something within your job that's like normalizing a situation where it's just a bunch of men. And if there's only 100 positions and you want more women, you're going to have to come up with some unique ways of telling all those men that their position is going to change for the sake of women. And that's not mine. That's not our job to figure that out. That's their problem. Which is why, and a lot of times, like diversity, like the diversity part of the DEI gets over prioritized for all the other, and for the sake of all the other things. Like, yeah, sure, diversity does mean you want to have like a set of people of unique experiences and voices and what have you, but the will to make those changes is really hard. And
I don't want that.
Joe.
Okay.
I love you, Joe, buddy. But let me ask you this: you got a position, 100 people. They're mostly black men that are filled. Do we sacrifice those jobs for white women?
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
if something just because something is homogenous in the favor of whatever my identity is does not mean that that's a good thing. Okay. So if you have something that's 100% black people,
I'm not talking 100%. Like we have like severe overrepresentation. You would tell these black men who've earned their job, right? They've earned their space. They're qualified. Hey, sorry, there's too many of you. We gotta let the white women in.
I'd actively just stop hiring black men. I don't have to make it so I'm like, y'all gotta go. I would just put them in the position where it's like, look, we're not hiring any more black men or black people broadly. Like, and I have no problem in terms of that. Like, but again, like it depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like if we're looking at this broad spectrum of like, hey, we need to have like, it's just like, we'll say in athletics, right? Like one of the problems that sometimes sports have, especially on the women's side, is that men end up being in those positions of whether it be coaching, athletic staff, and the residuals of that. But the only way for you to get more women is to hire more women. So you're going to have to make some type of strategy to go about that. Is that going to mean firing a bunch of people? If you want to, it can be. Have fun dealing with that when you justify it, even though there's a lot of like at-will states. But however they decide to do it, that's going to be their, like a business's determination of that. For me, I don't care about visual diversity like that. I care about the substance of people being at the table to make those decisions. So if there's a job environment where like if the job for me is something that's relative to the identity of a group of people, then I'm obviously going to make sure that there's people of substance in that. And sometimes those people of substance
we're talking people science today, right? Like science is I know it's a broad field, right? There's many different like subfields, I guess, categories of science, like biology, physics,
fields, subfields, disciplines.
right, yeah, whatever you want to call them. So that's kind of like the lens that we're looking at today. So
Mhm.
again, for science as a field, right? As a overall kind of institution, as an overall uh, grouping of a collective of disciplines, you would have this same position. You think that it is good and intrinsically good to have a diverse set of scientists.
You need to have a diverse set of scientists. Yeah, it's totally understandable why you would come to that conclusion. However, the problem is, and this is why liberals get this so wrong, is that they think that like diversity is just by the identity of the individual. You can have somebody in the field of science who knows a lot about women, in some cases more than women. So, and it's just admitting that. It's just admitting that, hey, and
Name
just
a
dying on that
man who
hill
knows more
of,
about women than women do. I'm just
I think it's
curious.
reasonable to believe that somebody that specializes in a field of science, in particular, will say it like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a science field that's relevant that's like easy for people to understand. If I am an OBGYN, I'm a male OBGYN, and my life has been about OBGYNs and being an OBGYN and all the things that encapsulate with that, I think it's reasonable to believe that OBGYN probably knows more about women than a lot of women do navigating their own bodies.
Fair
Because
enough.
his job is to understand that better than them. So like that's the core of their job. Now, are there certain aspects of that they probably miss? Absolutely, without a doubt. But that's going to require, in most cases, a female OBGYN to fill those gaps. So both of those people have importance in their field. Like you would not want to have an entire office of male OBGYNs. And I would argue that considering the context, it might be preferable to have a majority of female OBGYNs, but that's at the discretion of like how it ends up to be that.
Okay. Lactoid thoughts. Lots been said. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so, just a couple things I wanted to address. At will employment doesn't mean that you can discriminate based on race in hiring and firing. Somebody who was to say we're just not going to take any applications, so like white men need not apply or black men need not apply, you are going to get in a lot of trouble. You're going to get your pantsuit off you.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even advocate that. That wasn't even like the position I say you ought to do. Like there are many ways to say no. There's many ways to say no white people, no black people, no women without explicitly saying that. We know
well,
this. Like,
right, but like, but that's the thing. Like, even if you use like a implicit way of doing it, that's still illegal, right? It's called.
you have no way of proving that it's. You have no way of proving that it's implicit. Like implicity is vibes.
Well, I
You're
think
literally
that-
You're literally guessing
I
off of
think,
vibes.
hold on,
vast
just
majority
it
of
works.
no,
just to
the
bridge
va-
this gap, just bridge this gap. I think Joe is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. I don't mean to put words in your mouth here, but you are advocating that legal or not, this is something that should be done.
I'll give you a really easy example. I can directly target a zip code and hire more black people based on people who live in that area. And then someone can make the argument, well, you just hired those people because they're black. These are the people who applied. I looked in this area, I looked in these areas, and these are the people who applied. So maybe I had the intention of explicitly hiring black people, but there's no way to prove that. That's how the practice works all the time anyway. So I'm not saying I would do that, but I'm saying that's what I'm talking about.
Sure. When people say like there's no way to prove that, just to be clear about what how the law is put into practice, is that if you use another way of like pretextually discriminating against a certain group of people, that's not you could still get the pantsuit off you. So, for example, if you have a factory who's like, we're going to look at all the zip codes of the city. Oh, here's where the black people live. We just have a policy of not hiring people from those zip codes. You're getting the pantsuit off you, right? And
well, that's
any
categorically a violation. Like the point I'm trying to make is that
not categorically.
the people that who do these things are smarter than you and I, and have a whole sect of people
I know, I defend them
to say,
sometimes.
can I do that? So those people are diabolical pieces of shit. So like, well, I can't make I can't make the argument of like, hey, how do I do this? That's like, for instance, what people are thinking in universities right now. Like they already had some shit in place to hire black people or have more black applicants, but they just do it based on the things that were already allowed in the first place. That was the point I was trying to speak to. I didn't want to derail you too hard. My bad.
I'm just trying to just make it clear that like a lot of people are misconceptions when it comes to at will, and you can't, even under a pretext, you can't racially discriminate, and whether or not it's a pretext is not up to you or I. It's up to a jury. If a jury thinks, in their opinion, that you're doing this because you're a little bit of racism going on, that's going to be enough for major penalties and massive
Yeah.
lawsuits, hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps millions of dollars in certain cases. It's a major deal. And throughout on the other parts of what you were saying, it seemed like there was two things that you said that I think were contradictory, and so maybe you can kind of square the circle here and put them together. So you started off by saying that you really don't have a problem with men losing jobs to women, but then you talked about how, well, in certain cases, like a man can know more about like a certain like women's issues or OBGYN related issues than a woman can. And I agree very strongly with the second point, which is that, if there is a demonstration of merit, regardless of the gender or race of the person, on knowledge of a field that's relevant for the job, then that, of course, is merit, right? But if you have an all-male OBGYN center and all the men are qualified and all the men are good, then I don't see why it's necessary to have like a woman there. I don't see why it's now. I'm not saying that we shouldn't hire a woman. I'm just saying, why would we deny the advancement of maybe a more qualified person just for the sake of having a woman there? It just doesn't seem to make sense.
Because when I'm denying a bunch of women who feel more comfortable having a female OBGYN, so having men compromises my ability to make money. So I'm more than happy to make more money if it means hiring more women. That'll be the position I'll be at.
I'm sympathetic to this position. The only issue with this
Sure.
is, first of all, this is a sort of merit now if we're talking about just like how well this person is able to interact with the community. But would you be comfortable with this, let's say, operating the other way, like perhaps the other way around? So let's say you're in a very racist community and nobody there wants to work.
Zero issue.
Nobody
Zero
there,
issue.
so nobody wants to work with the black cashier. You're thinking the business should be fine saying, look, we can't hire you. Sorry, our customers are racist. They don't want to.
Well, because the problem with that is it's literally a civil rights violation. If you are not going to somebody because they are black in the workplace, that is categorical workplace discrimination.
No. I'm not saying in the work. What I'm saying is that like you're saying, well, we might have to have a woman OBGYN because like women coming in might feel more comfortable with that OBGYN. What if like in the town, all the customers to the local Walmart are hyper racist and they don't feel comfortable going to the black cashier? Can Walmart then discriminate against black cashiers who are applying for the comfort of their customers?
No, I mean, my practice would be deal with it. Like deal with it. If there's a black cashier in a job and you don't feel comfortable going to that black cashier, go to another one. Nobody cares about your feelings.
Sure.
Especially in the context of groceries, because now we're lowering the stakes here. Like initially, like there's a lot of reasons that you can make justifiable arguments why a woman, would want to go to a female OBGYN. You can make a bunch of arguments that are totally valid and understandable. Now, when it comes to cashiers, like you have to go through a lot of hoops and ladders to say there's a justifiable argument to not go to a cashier because they're black. And you just be doing like Asmongold racist apologia.
No, this is where I disagree. I think that I guess perhaps sympathize more.
Asmongold.
The argument, like you're saying,
I'm making the argument. Like I think that I'm probably more sympathetic to the woman in my personal opinion, but like in terms of just comfort level, I'm sure there are racists somewhere who are intensely uncomfortable being around black people. And so if you have a town, let's say, where they are intensely uncomfortable, let's say even more uncomfortable than a woman going to a male OBGYN, if they're more uncomfortable dealing with a black cashier, then I don't understand how it's okay to say, well, we can't, it's bad to have a whole bunch of male OBGYNs because we should have a woman for the women who prefer, women OBGYNs, as opposed to a situation where like everybody in this town is like really racist and they just don't want to be around a black person, right? It seems like you're like if the customer is always right sort of idea when it comes to OBGYNs, but not when it comes to cashiers.
Well, they're not directly customers, but I think also a thing to remember too is that the historical context of race and women's healthcare are totally different realities. So there weren't how do I say this in a way that's nice and friendly with terms of service? There weren't people saying segregation now, segregation forever in the context of OBGYNs. But that was something that black people had to deal with. There weren't people saying that I would rather die than to live next to a black person. I mean,
but that's irrelevant to the comfort level of the customers, is what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, the thing what you're doing respectfully is that you're trying to put logic to illogical things. Racism is illogical. So when you're trying to approach an illogical concept, which is racism, to logical situations, like the comfort that a patient might have for a male or female doctor, then you're going to be left with a bunch of contradictions that make no goddamn sense.
What's
Because
the
racism
logic
is
with that?
illogical.
What's the logic with like being more comfortable around a woman OBGYN?
Because it's reasonable to say, it's reasonable with the argument. I'm not a woman here, so I'm not going to make the one for one argument for that. But I think it's much easier.
Do we have
to make
women
the
in chat? Women in chat, if you're here, if you prefer a male
Well,
OBGYN, press 1. If you prefer a female OBGYN, press 2.
You can make arguments. The problem is all the arguments are like going to be in line with what like a raving racist would say about black people. Like I just
Again,
like,
like,
I feel unsafe. I don't like to be around them.
Approaching an illogical concept of racism is only going to be met with contradiction.
I think
right?
sexism and racism are both equally logical and illogical.
I mean, if you want to make the argument, like, sure, this is your argument you can make. Sexism is also illogical. But again, like my point here is that when you're approaching a illogical concept, and I mean, it's our fault. Americans created this shit. So it's like when you're approaching an illogical concept of racial construction and the contradictions that exist within that, and then you try to approach it logically, and then like you run into these traps of like, well, I could hear a racist saying this and it makes total sense. Well, yeah, it's by design. It's designed to, instead of actually dealing with the racism, you can use it in parallel argumentations to maintain it. So like maintaining racism is using the argument of the comfortability of male and female OBGYNs to the comfortability of black and white cashiers.
Okay,
Or in this case, black or non-white. But not black or non-black, rather.
Speaking of approaching things logically, $5 from Pumpkin King. I think I'm saying that right. Diversity, though, helps science. Diverse characters are likely to have diverse thoughts. Therefore, diverse characters likely help science. And then $5 from Audacity.
That is true.
Okay, wait, can I just speak on that though before we go to the next super chat?
Yes, go ahead.
So Corey just said that's true. I'm just going to reiterate.
No, absolutely.
Sure. I'm just going to reiterate. I reject that. One of the main things I wanted to say, to Joe's point initially, which was I reject this concept of diversity being intrinsically valuable until somebody shows me empirically that it is valuable. I just hear a lot of buzzwords. Dynamic. Different ways, different thinking, et cetera, et cetera. Show me where that actually is applied, and I'll consider it. But until then, no reason to think that it's valuable.
I mean, well,
go ahead.
As the result, like that's the thing that's kind of confusing to me, right? Because it's like it just sounds like you want to maintain the status quo, and the status quo is essentially just like white dudes, and anything that compromises the availability of white dudes is something that's like discouraged. I don't think that's the position you generally hold. It sounds like you use meritocracy as a shield from that overt white supremacy. But I would say that like the argument about diversity, because you seem kind of skeptical about it, everybody has unique experiences and unique ways of approaching problems, and ought to be every field, especially science, to make sure that there's a diverse set of individuals looking at a particular phenomena to try to understand it better. That's going to require people from a bunch of different backgrounds and a bunch of different identifiables that could be identifiables of their like present characteristics, and it could be like their invisible identifiers of like their personal backgrounds, where they studied, stuff like that. There's a reason why we send a bunch of people who have nothing to do with space into space, right?
Yeah, I do use meritocracy as a shield, and I use it to shield white people and white adjacent people like Asians from discrimination. I don't think they should be discriminated against.
What do you mean by white adjacency when it comes to Asians?
That's a statement that you made earlier. I was poking fun at it slightly.
What? I never said anything about...
In the past, you called Asians white adjacent.
That. Oh my God, that's fanatic, not me. But I appreciate the attempt, but plus one on that.
$5.
Again, to be clear, Fanatic believes Asians are white. If you want to argue about the whiteness of Asians, you can talk to Fanatic. Don't come to me about that shit.
I will find the quote. It was for sure you, but we'll talk about it.
It was not me. It was absolutely Fanatic.
Either way I fit in, I'm both half white and half Asian, so I'm good.
Fair enough. $5 from Audacity. To push back against Joe a little here, there is discriminatory hiring practices audit that can and is done and mainly initiative based, not regulatory. And thank you for the $5. I appreciate you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the limitations of civil rights, right? Like we don't have a compulsory civil rights system in the United States. So the only way for discrimination to exist is someone to make the argument of its existence. So, like, if you believe discrimination to be something that is wrong, then it's your duty to present that to whatever branch, whether it be the DHPA
of a perception
or
of Asian Americans in the United
there's
States.
a bunch of different divisions that exist within that. But that's the problem. This limitation of civil
as regards of like.
Do you think there are black people out there who see Asians as the model minority and actually group them together with white people as a
Did I miss something? Did
I
something go wrong with my internet? I don't know what's going on.
No, I think Lacto is just processing.
Oh no, sorry,
No.
I was muted for a second. What was the question asked to me?
Well, it wasn't really what the question asked. He was making a point. And, fair enough. Let me just kind of direct this a little bit.
equivalence? When I was in kindergarten, I thought I was
Given
white.
that, for those of you, and I think Joe thinks this, and I think our friend Corey thinks this, that as to the super chat earlier, diversity of thought leads to diverse characters, therefore diverse characters leads to diversity of thought, and that's necessarily good. Can you give me your best arguments here on to why?
Yeah.
Why is it that having a diverse cast of characters in science, and by diverse cast of characters, I mean men, women, white, black, etc., what is the value there? Can you describe it for my audience? Explain it.
Well, okay,
Please
so
tell us on it.
sure, I'll do my best. So one of the reasons why I value diversity to some extent, again, it's not like my number one value, and I'm not advocating for like this should be priority number one for all institutions and every single person out there. But I do think there is some merit to diversity. And this is the space that I'm coming from. So, do I think all diversity is equally good? And my answer is no.
Social and political systems in society based on who you are. You are a white. I'm assuming middle class Asian American. White presenting, I should say. So you're white.
I'm white presenting.
Wait.
What?
What?
I can-
What?
Wait, white presenting Asian.
What the heck?
Let me rephrase that.
Can you look at me right now? This is what. No.
I can simplify that for you. I can simplify that for you if that upset you.
Is it appropriate to call that a gaffe?
Yeah, I guess you could say it was a gaffe. Yeah, I would kind of agree.
At least in my experience, is different than a chemist and an engineer. Where sometimes in the companies that I've worked for, like the way an engineer approaches a problem is totally different and sometimes better than how a biochemist approaches it.
Do you think that applies when it comes to gender, to men and women?
Potentially in certain contexts, not every context.
Can you give me an example of one of these contexts that would apply?
Sure. I think the OBGYN example that Joe Lewis gave is probably a good example of like there's probably some value in terms of like having both men and women in that field. Same thing with nursing. Like even though nursing is like 95% women, I think there's some value of like, I'm not saying it should be 50-50 in nursing necessarily, but there should probably be greater diversity in nursing. There's probably value in that. That is not noticed yet.
Okay. Any thoughts?
And I think one example that I would bring to that is, let's say, from what I understand of nursing, and also as someone who has extensive experience as a patient, a challenge for some nurses, depending on the context, is like restraining a patient. Okay, and maybe having more male nurses might be beneficial.
Fair enough.
Can
Joe,
I-
do you have any answer on that? I want to give them both a chance to make their arguments before you go off. But yeah, Joe, same question to you. Like, can you sell us on this diversity, if that's something you actually believe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a DEI officer, but I would say the benefits are enhanced in, like, if I'm really just kind of broadly saying things, like diversity of perspectives leads to a broader range of ideas of approaches to problem solving, which is something that if science is in the interest of I wouldn't say trying to solve problems, but to solve a problem so it's definitively answered, but to definitely make sure that the questions are always presented in such a way and answered in such a way that can lead to the advancement of the particular field. I think that's a very important thing. Like scientists with different backgrounds may challenge a bunch of different things, existing assumptions about groups of people, unique experiences that can lead to particular scientific breakthroughs, and then just can lead to, because of this synthesis of different backgrounds, can lead to better overall performance and rigor of individuals. And then there's also just sort of like it's hard to make it like kind of broader, the geopolitical implications of that. Like the way that people deal with different fields of study are not the same. So doctors might be looking at the same problem in different places across the world and coming to different conclusions. And I think it's important to bring those people together as in many different ways to work on those things. And then there's also just the present fact that you got to recognize that not every single country has the exact same navigation with oppression and discrimination. If you have a field, and in America, it was science, that Black people were explicitly barred from, and then all of a sudden you're trying to say like, okay, we need more Black doctors. And it's like, well, we systematically made sure that there are no Black doctors. Then you have a problem. And then the question is like, okay, what are the unique experiences that exist with Black people that are pushing them away from the field that we need more of them? So, and that's the question that no department has a good job in solving, but science is bad about it, like really bad. And so, if you only position, which we did in America, white people to be doctors, and then you do that for generations, there are a bunch of barriers that are obvious and otherwise that might discourage people from being Black people, in this case, from being doctors in the first place, or discouraging women to be anything besides nurses. And these institutions did this systematically. It wasn't something that a bunch of not to racialize it too deep in this dream here, but it wasn't a bunch of white people. There were white people conspiring to make sure that Black people never got into these fields. But in most cases, you had people in different ends of the spectrum. You had people who overtly didn't want these groups. You had people collaborating with those who didn't want to be with these groups and making different types of concessions. You had people who passively did not care at all. So they were kind of like neither here nor there, but apathy tends to pull over to whatever the majority side is. So understanding the history that groups have within your particular field and recognizing that, hey, for the sake of making sure that we are approaching this from a matter of justice, it should be the invested interest of an institution to try to do better by the groups that have pushed people out. And this is true for any field. Like if you see a field that, for instance, like men were disproportionately barred from for X or Y reason, I think a matter of justice, if you're trying to do better by that group of people, is to find the ways that men are positioned to not go to those job fields and work to include them. An example of this is nursing. An example of this is teaching. An example of this is, and again, I'm saying teaching going outside of physical education. Like the one field that was disproportionately represented for teachers.
Yeah, I mean,
in the modern
professors
times,
have been men for a large portion of early history, right? But then
absolutely. And women are still barred from these fields in terms of
kindergarten and things like that. It's different, right? So it's not just like one field.
Yeah, to speak on that a little bit, I'll land the plane. Like women still disproportionately represent K through 8. And then it starts normalizing to where they're not a super majority, they're just a majority now. And it's like, okay, how are men positioned in society where they're prepositioned to not be teachers in K through 8? And then there's a bunch, and then there's arguments of
isn't it just possible, and devil's advocate here, right? Isn't it just possible that women are more adept at teaching K through 8? And that
can I just build off of that just very quickly?
I'm still listening. I gotta close my window. It's cold as shit in here.
Yeah, go ahead. but we got a bunch of people want in, right? Or well, Lactoid wants in, and
I want in.
I have some thoughts too. But
I just want to punctuate Joey's point that
punctuate. Go ahead, punctuate it.
So that teaching example and pretty much like what you just brought up and what Joe Lewis brought up in terms of like K through whatever, pretty much like whatever elementary, high school, largely women now, and now I think what's sometimes gets spoken about is like there's an issue of how men are not doing well in education, or just maybe not doing well overall in some respects. And then there's there's talking point of like, well, there's a lack of good male role models. And that might be reflected, or the lack of male teachers might be part of that. And that if there's more male teachers, especially through elementary and high school, there might be good male role models there available.
Fair enough. My, and I'll let you go after this, Lactoid. But I guess like steel manning and devil's advocating for a moment, like just through merit, if women, for whatever reason, just do it better, just do K through 8 teaching better than men, why would we sacrifice that? Why would we give our children a worse education for the sake of diversity?
That presupposes that we gave men an opportunity to prove themselves in the field. Right?
Well, let's assume we do. Let's assume we do.
Okay.
There's a merit.
Really more from reality, but
women just do it better, right?
So because we did a bunch of means testing, we found out through means testing that in the educational field and practice, women are better than men. Is that the hypothetical we're dealing with?
In this for these positions, yes. And we can say that it's because of generational factors. We can say that it's because of cultural preferences. All these reasons why we can say that it's the case. But it is the case. And being that it is the case, and we do value the job that they do, and we want our children to have the best education possible, why not just give it to them?
It still does not. I mean, like, I guess the best way I would answer this is that men still exist despite women being better at a thing. And men will be engaging with that institution despite the belief that women are better at a thing. And if the desire is to make sure that women are dominant in this field, then sure, bar men out of it. But if the goal is to try to make sure that we have a better representation of all different people, not just women, then you're going to have to engage in the deficiencies that made men poor teachers and educators in the first place. And that's a longer goal. It's a longer task. So like if we means tested that women were more successful or better than men educationally, and there's a bunch of data to prove that, then we should probably engage with the vulnerabilities about making men insufficient in that field and try to change it that way. Not just maintain
like
it.
I guess my issue is like, why try to change it if it's working? If it ain't broke, like if there's no institutional barriers to men getting in just because they are men, but instead that they just have these standards that men, again, for a wide variety of reasons, just can't meet. Why change that if it's working? But Lactoid here is been trying to get in, and I want to give it to Lactoid. And then I got some super chats to read. But
no, I got a few things written down here that I'd like to get out, and I think it's relevant again, just because I'm trying to prove that I'm not using meritocracy to, I guess, cover for white supremacy. Joe, you were the person who said the quote that I was thinking of. You did call Asians white presenting, though, not white adjacent. So
I called it a single individual white presenting,
and
I apologize.
I know you apologize, but that's what I was. That was the joke. I know.
Yeah,
you apologize.
No,
that was the joke I was making fun of, poking fun a little bit.
But we can recognize that joke is used to justify people calling me a black nationalist and even saying that I support ethno states, right?
I'm not calling you a black nationalist or supporting ethno states. At least based on what I know about you, you could, but I don't know.
But do you
when it
understand,
comes
like,
to
even though that is,
when-
like, my push there, just to be sure I'm clear about this and let you land everything else, my push there is that has been used as a way to discredit what I say and pushing to a clip that's now 3 years old. And I would hope with the chairability that we don't do that same shit to other content creators,
sure, but you could have
characterizing them a one representation of what they say.
You could have corrected it that way, as opposed to, oh, I didn't say that was fanatic, and explained to, you know, it was a small joke, just poking fun at, hey, Asians being white presenting as opposed to, I guess, white adjacent. Although I think that in the context of the quote, they essentially meant the same thing. And the reason why I thought that was relevant is because Asians are discriminated most when it comes to these kind of hiring practices, and when it comes to affirmative action, when it comes to all these. It's not white people, it's Asians by far. In fact, according to the 2019 Harvard data, you know, yes, black people benefited the most from affirmative action, and white people, they were hurt, but not all that much. Asian people, about with like close to half of Asians, wouldn't get in, or it may have been 1/3, but still a major portion of Asians didn't get in because of affirmative action practices. And all those Asian people have different backgrounds with different unique experiences, and I think we should treat those people with a level of non-discrimination and a level of respect, because I think that respect and non-discrimination here are hand in hand. And so when we're talking about, well, we want people with different backgrounds and different experiences, I'm not sold on this idea, well, this means some kind of race-based or gender-based discrimination. I will use anti-discriminatory rhetoric and as a shield to shield people who I think are being discriminated against, which is the whole topic of this conversation. I'm very evidence-based. Sort of ironically, this is a conversation about science. I'm science-based here. I'm not convinced by people just appealing to, well, they're going to think differently. Well, they're more dynamic. It's just a different way. No, I want to see evidence. I want to see results. Show me results. And Corey, you said you had something. And obviously, I understand it's probably a long study that we can go through later. But again, all the evidence I've seen claiming that, diversity, when you prioritize diversity over merit, this leads to quote unquote better results.
I never made that claim that when you prioritize diversity over merit.
Well, no, you did when you said like if you got 100 people with the highest IQ in a room, they might not perform as good as a diverse group of people in that room, right? So I guess I'm using IQ here as like a stand-in for merit.
Right. Okay. So that means something to me. To me, that's different.
Okay. Sure. But I haven't seen evidence for either, right? And when we're talking about affirmative action, we're talking about overtly racist hiring practices, in which we're saying, or sexist hiring practices, in which we're saying, no, you're not allowed to work here, or we're going to like discount, or we're saying you're not allowed to work here, and the deciding factor was your race. That's really what it comes down to. It just seems weird to me, especially weird when we don't have hard data on the subject. The last thing I'll say is, if we're looking at like women liking OBGYNs, or I think the example that you gave, Corey, was, male nurses can can do better in a bedside manner or for certain patients, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'd want to see evidence of this. But also, are you concerned that this may in of itself perpetuate certain racist systems, right? So for example, it may be the case that like, let's say in a super racist area, that white patients might do better if they're not treated by a black doctor because they don't trust black people. And by not having any black doctors, people just kind of, they're never exposed to black people to trust them, right? Wouldn't we want to say, okay, we're not going to discriminate against Asians, for example, who are the most discriminated against. We're just going to say, look, if you can make it on the merit, and everybody in this hospital is here because of their merit, as opposed to trying to cater to specific customer wants or needs.
I'm not sure I followed your entire line of law. So I don't want to ask you to repeat it, but I almost have no choice here. Can you just go through that one more time?
I'll just read the last part. So, male nurses. Oh, maybe it's like better. I guess my question is, why would it be better in absence of some kind of empirical evidence? And what if it's the case that when you have certain minorities that are discriminated against for the same logic, right, like Asians, could this lead to more racism against Asians, for example?
Well, the only thing that I said when it comes to male nurses is that it could be better. Like, I'm okay. That's why I'm all about experimentation. Of like, to me, it's an open question. I don't know what the nursing field looks like if there's now 30% there's now 30% representation among men. Now, if we run that experiment and it turns out that it's overall bad outcomes, of like patient outcomes are worse, and that all my perceived good of like, oh, now maybe we can better restrain patients. We don't have to rely on like whatever security down the hall. If that all turns out to be like not founded, then I'm okay with like, yeah, let's like.
Well,
I don't care about
here's a way of better phrasing. Here's a better way of phrasing my prior question. What if it turns out that it's actually a good thing when it's all women, all white women specifically? Are you okay then saying no blacks need apply, black people need not apply, Asians need not apply?
Well, yeah, that's why I brought it back to like it depends what you mean by all good. I don't know what you mean by all good. I would pose the hypothetical to you of like, let's say your institution, or let's say in your future law firm that you run, and whatever, it's all clones of you, or close to you. Okay, it's all.
We can only handle one lactoid, first of all. One lactoid is more than enough. Any more than one lactoid is just too much.
And then yeah, you're evaluating two applicants. Okay, it's another you. Well, it's both of them are you, but one's just a different. On paper they appear the same, but then the race is different. Okay, I'm not talking about just like the skin color is different, but like everything that's loaded into the word of race. Of like, to you, is that just a coin flip? Okay.
Yeah, it's a coin flip. Yeah, unless you show me evidence to the contrary, it's just going to be a coin flip.
$5 from Turtle Emergency. Groups of people are not monoliths. Not every man, nor every woman, or every whatever phenotype are good and bad at the same things. Thank you for $5. Here's my take here, right? I think that if you have a system based on merit, real merit, right? Not I think like things like where you set a standard and that standard is good for the field in which that standard is set. So, for example, it leads to better outcomes in that field if people are able to meet these standards. And if they meet these standards, it's a good thing. Then if that tends to mean that more women or more men or more Asians or more black people meet that standard, I'm okay with that. That's okay. Like the NBA, if it just so happens because of all these different reasons that black people are just better and perform better on average in the NBA, so that you have an overrepresentation of black people in the NBA, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's okay. I think the same holds true for every single field that you can think of. I cannot think of a field where, again, if we have that merit, that standard, and if we hold to that standard, that it just doesn't make for better outcomes in general for society.
I don't just in principle I don't disagree. That's why like I call into question like the standard of like in the article itself they put forward the standard like, well, this is the standard now of like publications in Nature, Cell, and Science, and like I question that standard. Again, maybe hiring committees are looking at something else. There's talk of like what they call soft skills when it comes to like management and leadership. Like, what are soft skills? I think those are hard to measure. But I think increasingly more and more, as more and more data comes out, hopefully, you're going to see that these things probably matter. Like, I don't know how you measure empathy objectively now, currently. I don't know how you measure compassion also objectively. Like, these are all subjective things, but I think we recognize that they exist. They're just difficult to measure. And whether we actually get to perfect measurements or perfect metrics, probably not. But I think we all recognize that these are things. Then that we're not automatons.
I think a problem with what you presented, Wick, is there's reasons why, I've said this before, right? There's reasons why groups don't end up in particular fields. I'll give you an example. In Pennsylvania, white teachers make up about 96% of the teaching sample, this teaching size. If you're tasked, as a matter of policy, to make initiatives of hiring more black teachers, what do you do?
Well, this is the, do we want that to be a task that is assigned to people? Do we want to say, you need to hire more black teachers? Or, and let me rephrase this, which I think you might even agree with this. Does the question become, how do we remove obstacles so that black teachers who meet these criteria are able to get in and not discriminated against? I think
And that's
these are
what
two
DEI is
separate
about.
questions, right?
No, it's the same. It's baked into it. Like
I don't agree.
the
I don't
problem.
agree.
No, but I understand why you don't agree. But I'll explain it to you this way, right? Like the only way that you're going to get more black people to go to Ivy League institutions is for you to have a targeted campaign so that black people know that this is an institution that they ought to go to and that they should go to. I use college recruitment as an example because they do this directly. They will overtly target groups that they want to go to school. So they'll overtly target by zip code. They'll overtly target by the places that they congregate. They'll overtly target by the places that they go to. There's a reason why you see in majority non-white areas college recruiters for the military. Like that's not a coincidence as to why they're there. And they're there for particular interests and particular reasons. So something that I would say, if you're looking to get more people in whatever field you're looking to be, is to be where those people are and recognize that this is an institution that they ought to be in. If you don't present that this is something that is accessible, then you're not going to be surprised that things don't change. Like Georgian Court University just transitioned from being a all-girls Catholic school to a co-ed, but they still have problems with enrollment in men. And then like you'll hear like, is it because that men just hate women? Or do they have no idea how to approach men in traditional educational environments where they spent decades building the infrastructure of how to target women?
Yeah, but we can see
You know what I'm saying?
a tangible good and benefit if your goal is to get more black people to go to college, right? There's a societal good there. There's just a good overall, and I think that offering that and making sure that we remove the barriers that these
Yeah.
communities face is a good thing. But when DEI, when the rubber meets the road, that's not how these things are implemented, nor is
Right,
it how
because
they
they
play
only
out.
right, I agree with you because they only focus on one of the things. They use diversity as the most important thing, but then they don't even approach the diversity part correctly. Because
Which
it's
is
not
why I think,
diversity
yeah,
of just appearance. It's diversity of thought, it's diversity of background, it's diversity of experience.
I agree with that. But here's where we disagree: is because this is true, I think that trying to use DEI as a tool is bunk. It has failed us, and we need to remove it as a tool and go back and with an adjusted look at this, right? To
So,
simply merit based, where we remove obstacles rather than look for kind of quotas.
do you think we engaged in the equity and inclusion parts?
No.
Well, there you go. That's the problem.
But I think that
We do.
by the nature
Equity?
of these programs, that it does not properly engage. Can I change my word to properly for you, Lactoid? Is that better?
No. I said equity. No, I think that you're wrong. Like equity, of course. I mean, equity appears to be the main focus as opposed to, like inclusion.
Well, okay, so maybe here's the problem, right? Because I think I hear it. I think I hear it in a conversation. So I'm going to ask you this question very, very directly. Like, what is justice?
In what context? Are we
What
talking
is
legal
justice?
system justice?
Period. I have a definition for justice that I can use in all contexts. Do you?
Okay, well, no, because I think that it's not the same in this. There is no. I think context
problem.
matters.
Okay.
And I think that what is justice in a individual sense is different than what justice is in a community sense, and it's different between communities. What justice looks like, for example, on the world stage, is going to look and be different than what justice between me and Lactoid, if we had a fight, would look like.
So you can't define it.
Joel, are you just saying that justice means things
in
no, I
their
wanna
right
hear his- I
place
wanna
or
hear his,
things the way they're meant to
No.
be? Because if it's that, you're just saying the
No.
word has a definition. He's not going to disagree with you on that level. I think he's trying to say that what the fine details of the application of justice from domain to domain don't spread. But of course, he would say the word has a definition.
But he can't define it, is my point.
No,
Like,
no,
and
okay.
the problem that I come into, if you don't have a proper definition of justice when you're talking about equity, if equity is justice and you can't define justice, then you have no idea what equity is. You know what I'm saying?
Well, is
because
equity
the first
justice?
thing
You've skipped over. Yeah, talk to Wick on this. He doesn't think that equity and justice are the same thing.
so equity and justice are not compatible with each other, Wick.
It's
Well,
not that they're
and I
incompatible.
wanna
He's
know
saying that
what
they're
you
not.
when you say hold on,
They're
Tuna.
not synonyms,
Okay,
right?
sorry.
Tuna, calm down.
Represent yourself. Yeah, represent
Yeah.
yourself.
I agree with that. yeah.
I need to know what you mean by justice.
Sure. When I talk about justice,
Please.
I define justice as a describer. It describes the collaborative conditions of a community.
Okay, you are going to have to. Maybe I'm dumb. Okay.
More
I don't know
details.
what that means.
Sure. So, freedom and justice for me are interlinked with each other. I define freedom as one's ability to self-determine themselves and collaborate with their community and their institutions. The only way you can have freedom is through justice. Justice is just a way of describing the conditions of collaboration. And for somebody to be free, they're able to make decisions, make choices, and engage in the institutions and themselves in a collaborative manner. You can be free without collaborating with anybody around you. I don't consider that freedom. Because for me, freedom describes not only your ability to make choices for yourself and to be autonomous for yourself, but also to make those choices relative to your community and your institutions. So when I talk about justice and why equity requires justice, we're just describing, in terms of the DEI perspective, are these people in this environment able to freely collaborate with each other? And that describes what justice is. Injustice comes from that lack of collaboration within your community institutions.
Maybe this is just a definitional thing because how I understood equity, right?
Sure.
Is what I understand equity to be is it's different from equality in a fundamental way. It's bringing the people who have less up, right, and the people who have more kind of down, right, to kind of to make it equitable, right? Whereas equality would be an example of that would be like whether you're rich or poor, young or old, black or white, if you commit this crime, you will be punished in this way, regardless of circumstances. That would be an equal thing. Whereas an equitable thing would be like we take into account the circumstances or surrounding your background when we mete out justice or we mete out punishment for this crime that's committed, right? Would that be a good...
The reason why I asked you about justice is because it exposes why we disagree on DEI altogether. Because if I'm defining justice, and I consider justice an important portion of equity, I consider equity to be justice. They're interchangeable with each other. They're describing the collaborative conditions of a community. So in an environment of scientists, if they cannot collaborate freely amongst each other, and being able to make autonomous decisions for themselves in collaboration with the community and institutions, then that's obviously a bad thing and not equitable.
But how does
that? So when I'm looking at the idea of like, okay, has DEI been actualized? I would argue no, because there hasn't been an actual dedicated approach to justice.
Even in that definition, though, I would say that diversity of whether there be a lot of men or a lot of women or an equal amount of men and women does not prohibit or enhance their ability to collaborate with each other. I think that it is a non-starter.
Can I check, Joe?
Go for it.
Go ahead, Tana.
So one of the main reasons that free association isn't the model that science and medicine operate on is because of the public funding model, right? It's because people aren't able to choose where their taxes go, choose what their government funds directly. So it's not free. It's already not a free association to begin with, because the funding is not coming in with free association. Why would you say that free association for the scientists inside of a plane that's already not free?
That's not what I said, Tuna.
No, I'm not. I'm okay. I'm asking a question then.
Then great. Go for it.
Why does the collaboration matter at that layer when it's already been corrupted at the point of the funding?
Justice is describing the collaborative conditions of a community. Injustice comes when that collaboration does not exist, or that collaboration is infringed upon. You can be self-autonomous, you can self-determine yourself, but self-determination is not without guardrails. It's in the word itself.
I'm saying that before you even get to the point where people are collaborating and people are having rules put upon them that change the way they collaborate, the only reason that they are even to begin to collaborate is because of money being sent to them from people who are putting expectations on them, who are putting rules and regulations, conditions on that funding. So like when that funding is conditional, there's no such thing as free association in that model.
But again, it's not like you're saying free association when I clearly said that freedom is individuals' ability to self-determine themselves and collaborate with their community and institutions.
Yes, and if
so my definition includes what you are describing. You're describing guardrails, and the guardrails that I'm hearing from you is the funding. With the guardrails of funding existing, that does not inhibit collaboration, that does not inhibit self-determination. It is saying you have to make decisions and action and choices within these guardrails for yourself and other people. So
that
there
is
are
limitation.
situations.
Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back.
Yes, because self-determination is not free. Like what you're describing is if you have complete and total freedom that's without collaboration. So if you only focus on yourself and make choices for yourself, that is not freedom.
You're doing a difference of comparison here. I'm not talking about the difference between an individual and a group that is working with funding and association. I'm talking about me and you right now talking. We're doing this on the conditions of Wick's platform, and he sets the expectations there. And if I were to break a condition for Wick, he would kick me out. Same thing with you. That is the condition under this. But if me and you were just in a room together, having the same damn conversation, that condition is removed. I'm saying that is a more freely associative model than what's happening here.
Wick is always watching.
The condition is not
always removed
because
the condition of Wick is removed. The condition that defines that engagement. Of course,
and in those conditions, I might have different rails of what I consider my parameters. You'll have different parameters, and then we have to say, hey, even when we're in a private one-on-one conversation, there's certain places where we can go. There's certain places where we cannot go. So, for example, I can easily say something that might offend you. I might even say something that you consider disrespectful. You set those guardrails for yourself. But if I know those guardrails exist for you, I know, okay, this is a portion of our private interaction. Even though this is a private interaction, I cannot go. And if I go to that, then we're no longer collaborating collectively.
Okay. I'm throwing a flag on the play because I want to bring.
Please.
don't have much time, right? And I want to bring this back to the point of the conversation. The reason we're talking here today, in this context, right, of justice, is it justice that men are being underrepresented when it comes to receiving job interview applications, job interview opportunities, job offerings in these job interviews? Is that justice? Because it does seem that they are being underrepresented. As according to Nature magazine, it's because women are just better at it. But is that the case? Or are there systemic institutional barriers that are keeping men who would otherwise get the job from getting the job? That's the question. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're discussing. In these last few minutes of the discussion, I want to focus on that. We're going to go to Tuna because he hasn't been here for that. I want to hear your thoughts, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, for sure. There is at least evidence that we've gone too far in pushing funding and pushing people into one job or another. I would like to see more focus on that funding with people who are younger, people that aren't in college, so that we can start building aptitudes. So then meritocratic systems at the collegiate level work better. There's been a little bit done in terms of regionality, but I would like to see that, because I think that college is supposed to be a filter. It is supposed to tell you whether or not you have the aptitude necessary. And if we push our finger on the college scale too much, we make it so that the filter is the job itself. When it comes to stuff like medicine, I understand why, and I think everybody understands why we don't want that to be the filter. People can die, people get into a liability situation. So yeah, I think if we are in a position where people who are qualified are not getting job offerings, they need to drive to another city or even leave their state in order to get a job for something that has it's one of the most obvious jobs that we need more people to go into, medicine, then that's a problem. Does that mean take funding away from people? No, I think it just means push it to different places. Make it so that instead of doing this whole like pushing women into college or pushing them to stick through with college, just pushing more younger people to be apt to have the aptitude and to recognize and identify with the aptitude they have before getting to college. Because a lot of guys, the reason that they're not sticking with college has very little to do with feeling like they're not smart enough. It's that when they get in, they have better financial opportunities from the get-go in labor and in tech that they could just go into earlier, and they're convinced before they even pick their college to go into a different field than medicine.
Wait, do you mean like immediate financial incentive? Because I think the data are pretty clear. Long-term financial outcomes are just better with a college education.
Yes, immediate. I'm saying that if you you should be able to, at least during junior high, at least maybe late elementary, start going through specialization. I think we've gotten to the point where like you can do electives in high school. You should be able to have the type of directional priming for something like medicine that early, because that's when people start to show aptitude to that degree of specialization. And if you are able to prove it, and if we start if we start scouting for people at that point, as opposed to the first year of college or the last 2 years of high school, we're going to be able to know who we can give that immediate, during college, financial benefit to, so that men could actually want to go into that field.
So are you trying to say that the problem is the lack of particularness that parents give to their children? Is that the point you're trying to make?
It's not just parents, although I would say parents can make up for it. Obviously, we know the Asian parent thing, and when it comes to the filter of moving to America, our brain drain, we should be able to brain drain out of the slums. We should brain drain the ghetto, of course, because that's how you get money back into the ghetto. People go back and they spend the money that they earned in college.
No, they don't.
You don't think that people take care of their parents?
No, they tend to move to like wealthier neighborhoods and bring their parents over there. That's what happens.
That's also not true, but okay. I think something that you were knocking at has nothing to do with the question that Wick proposed, but I absolutely agree, is that as a culture, we don't believe in particularness. We don't invest in particularness of education. We don't even invest in the particularness of children. Like, so I think it's fair to say that, just be particular with how you raise your children. Be particular in what they want to be. So, and it's your job as a parent to carve that path. You can absolutely carve the path to make sure that your child ends up being a lawyer, and you can start that at 2 years old. The only reason why I was in music and why I actually enjoyed music and enjoyed saxophone is because that's all my mom played every day in the house. That's all she played. She only played jazz, in particular instrumental jazz. So the artists and people that I was exposed to that I liked was directly connected to the fact that my mother played jazz. So there's even songs that I run into that I didn't even know existed, but that was the particularness. Like we had to start being pro-grooming in the society insofar as it's absolutely justifiable to groom people to particularness. And if you really are uncomfortable with that idea, we already do that in high school. We already groom people to be particular and be particular in the field that they want to do. But we just choose, as to your point, we just decide to do it at junior year of high school, senior year of high school, when in reality, you should be thinking about the particularness of what you want to do as early as 3. But the problem is that it doesn't matter how particular you are with your child's education, there's still going to be barriers in those fields. Like you can particularize your daughter to be an astronaut. Guess what? She's probably not going to be an astronaut. Like there's just a bunch of barriers that exist within that field that pre-exist your desire to be particular on that. And those are the barriers that you have to get rid of.
Joe, I think that you're getting, like, we can move past this point and look at more, but like, I'm surprised you, of all people, aren't going to say that it should be the state's responsibility in addition. Don't you think that the reason parents are good at it?
I want to abolish the state. I want to abolish the state. I am not a statist. Like,
I don't think that you mean the state, but like, do you not think a community? Do you not think that something beyond a parent? Do you not think that parents fail because a lot of parents are retarded? Like, your parents are not going to be able to quote unquote particularize their child. There's a reason why some people particularize their child and some don't.
They can. They absolutely can. You can absolutely particularize your child into a field without having exposure to that particular field. Like,
yeah, like huffing dust or something. Like we need somebody other than the parent.
Of course, but you particularize them into going into those things. You could be my child, and I could make you go to soccer practice every single day until you're 18.
Right.
And guess what? You're probably going to be like, maybe I do like soccer. Maybe I do like this and that. Like, that's what I'm talking about in terms of particularity. I will agree with you that not every single parent has the capacity and access to create particularity in their child because they have a bunch of different backgrounds of that. But the particularities that they tend to produce is a particularity that they have already. Like my broader argument would be we don't actually have a culture of particularness. So we appeal to universality. And universality is what makes you more advertisable, makes you more marketable, where I think that's bullshit. Where, like, one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of scientists is that, like, parents fail their children because they don't have the education needed to ensure that their child succeeds. Like, parents aren't inherently good or bad. It's just a matter of how that works for them,
When you say we, do you just mean non-Asian, non-Jews?
What do you mean non-Asian, non-Jews?
Like, American culture has ethnicities and subcultures which are very particular with their children.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Cool. I just want to know. I want to know who the we is.
But I'm talking about particularity as I don't know what you mean by when you say that, and it comes off really racist. But I want to give you the benefit of the doubt here.
I'm saying there are. Do you not? Okay. There are communities which are very particular about who you marry, what job you go into, and it's primarily Asians and Jews in America. Because
would you say that is broadly? So, are you casting that to a particular subset of these groups, or the entire group by and large? Because again, like, Black people tend to marry Black people, white people tend to marry white people, Asians tend to marry Asians. Like, so I don't know what you're saying here.
No, I'm saying that. Not just your mom, not just like slight social pressure. I'm saying you will be disowned. You will not be invited to your own family gatherings. Mom will not pick up the phone. I'm talking about like a much harsher than just like, oh, well, all my dudes are going to be fucking with me if I'm just like plowing snow all the time. No, I'm saying like some people have a heavier hand in the matter when it comes to the parent-child interaction. They say directly, this is what you are going to go into. This is what our family does. These are what connections we have. I am going to have dinner with you and my brother, and he's going to teach you what the path towards being a doctor is. That's the kind of support that you get out of a lot of foreign cultures and a couple of American cultures. But by and large, American cultures this is divided on the ethnic line. It's not because of like the skin tone. Yeah, there are probably some Asian cultures, like it's, Asia's quite large, but like When we're talking about the Asian cultures that import into America, they are particular. They want
predetermine. So hold on. Let's make something really, really clear. First off, we definitely particularized what ethnic groups can even immigrate into the country in the first place. So let's make let's make sure that history is present. Let's also make sure the history is present that those particular groups of people, whether it be Black, Asian, Jewish, Hispanic, what have you, were only prepositioned to be in certain fields because of their position in the institutions themselves, which led them going into those fields in the first place. If you have a society...
It's not true with Asians at all.
It's not true with Asians at all?
No, not at all.
But we did not position Asian Americans to be
We positioned them on the railroad.
Yeah, we put them in the railroads and in camps during World War II, but we didn't put them, Asians were not dominating the institutions. Like, they came from a culture which prioritized...
I'm just supposed to act like the Asian Exclusion Act Chinese Exclusion Act didn't exist?
No, it did. We excluded them from you can't argue 2 points like both sides of this. Like the country excluded them from the country. The U.S. did.
But we didn't. Hold on. Wait.
But
this is racism. But
no. Asian Americans were not like a substantial part of like our institutions or institutional power in America until relatively recently, right? And
recently,
relatively. No, they still are not. Asians outperform white people on like most socioeconomic metrics.
But what Asians are we talking about when we talk about those socioeconomic metrics? Because Asia is not just Korea, China, and Japan.
I know.
It's an entire diaspora of people.
I understand. Just like
and
white people also are diaspora people.
If you disaggregate the data, if you're being honest, the disparities still exist within there. Hierarchy still exists within those communities, even in the context of where they're from.
So I can give you. So there's also just diaspora between different white people. Germans are not the same.
Okay,
as Swedes,
and are those diasporas of white people having disparities that the United States government has perpetuated?
Yes, different community. Yes, different. Well, I don't.
Fabricated.
United States government is perpetuated. I don't know about that. I do know that like different diasporas of white people have different outcomes. So that, of course, that's true.
Such as what?
Like in terms of socioeconomic status. But I'm trying to get to the point here, which is that what Tuna's saying is that Asian Americans, like as we understand Asian Americans, the majority of them, like as a demographic in America, tend to outperform white people, and that's not because of some kind of institutional advantage that they had. It's because, by and large, when you look at people coming from Japan and China, they come from a culture which the family prioritizes success and will punish you and exclude you socially if you don't achieve success. This is one of the reasons why Mormons are also like particularly successful in certain regards. It's because the family unit will like exclude you and shun you if you don't fulfill their expectations. I guess, Tuna's, your argument here is just like, the culture and the groups of which you're a part of and the pressure that they put on you to accomplish certain things can be used as an explanation here as to differing success rates, as opposed to, the institutions are captured and the institutions are just racist, etc.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that a lot of this happens before you get into those institutions. It has to do with the priming. You can call it the grooming, Joe. That's such a crazy word. But it has to do... I know. It's just like when other words are available, it was just so funny to just have to sit through you say it like 6 times. It's just the space that we're in. But it's like, it's one of those things. It is about the cultural explanations. It is about the grit. It is about the stories that are told. And it is, you can say we have a very individual culture, but a lot of us don't. And the people who are doing the particularity, they're doing it because it was done with them. So if we just leave it to parents, it's going to look like it is now, but more extreme, generation after generation after generation. We need to have some kind of equalizer, or else, like we already know, and this might happen with history, because we know we have a very good import of hardworking, industrious, and very, very strict social and familial standards of Nigeria. Nigeria is sending a ton of people that are doing into medicine. And that's one of those things that over time might shift the demographic information. And then maybe people will be like, oh, African origin people are doing so much better and they're overrepresented. And then we'll be able the conversation, well, it's only Nigerians, or instead of it being like, oh, well, that's only Indians and Japanese and Chinese and Korean. But what about people who are from Thailand or something? Like, we know what we mean when we say there are certain cultures that are very, very strict. And we can learn from those cultures when it means it's okay to stay with your parents. You're not kicked out when you're 18, not kicked out when you're 21, so long as you're working and you're working a job, and they're very, very supportive throughout that entire process. That is something we can import.
Well,
and we don't have
as long as you're aligned with the family, what they want.
Yeah, but that's also like a family is an economic unit.
And that's a cultural advantage I had, by the way.
Before anyone responds, before anyone responds, I want to just reiterate, we have a very limited time here.
Okay.
And you did ask a question that I did want to answer.
Move it forward.
So just to nip this in the butt right now. So the highest group of educational attainment for Black Americans tends to be, more often than not, African immigrants. So if American descendant of slaves and American-born Black Americans just adopted the cultural expectations, the cultural traits, and the cultural expressions of their African immigrant counterparts, they would have better outcomes?
If you did it completely neutrally, it would probably be a net positive, yeah.
What does neutral look like?
I'm saying just adopt every single aspect, yeah, then it would. The problem is, when we're talking about this, most people are saying, oh, well, I'm going to look back then and I'm going to import some of those things and ignore some other ones, and also include some American ones, include some others, and then what you get is a sort of skewed sample. But if you're going to say, well, my son, homosexual, no, that's not one of the ones that's helping. That's not helping. But my son works hard, has a job, and doesn't date until he has a financial stability, that one would definitely help.
So the thing that confuses me with this, and then we can move on from it, is that it rubs me the wrong way. Because while it's true, sure, on average, some Asian American groups have higher educational attainment and income achievement. There's some cases that they do outperform white Americans. But it seems like the only way the argument works is to crush the entire diaspora to a very particular subset and then use that as the overall aggregate. Because I would never say that African immigrants aren't experiencing challenges in the United States that's unique to them, and we ought to ignore it. We have to ignore their disparities because they have good educational outcomes. It seems like there's a idea of what we consider a better culture, and then we are just looking to these groups that seem to emulate these things that we believe to be better, without it really engaging with everything else.
I'm not saying that because people have money, you don't have to have the police protect them or something. It's just such a weird. I just don't know what you
mentioned money though.
My dog is begging.
Your dog is begging
for her walk, so we're going to have to.
Please, yeah, we can. We can talk about it more, Joe. Later.
We will,
sure.
Yeah, you guys can talk all night if you'd like. Gang, this has been an interesting show. We've talked a lot. I had my thoughts on the Asmongold apology. If you missed that, I suggest you go back and watch that. I thought it was a great piece. Check that out. This discussion has been great. I appreciate everyone for coming in, jumping in, talking, and I'm going to give each of them a chance to have some closing thoughts and to put a pin in what they think. Gang, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I got to check. We're going to be talking about bipartisanship. Is it something we should be trying for? Recently, Kamala said that if she was elected, would have a Republican in her cabinet. Is that a good example of bipartisanship? Is
or
that
diversity
that we want?
Inclusion.
Question, right?
DEI picks sounds like.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that good or not? Well, when it comes to politics, we're going to find out. And tomorrow we're going to be joined by a whole host of people. It should be fun. Let's give it first to Lactoid, and then we'll let Tuna lead us out at the end. So Lactoid, Joe, Corey.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Somebody, and it was NoCal Mike, I get along with him, so I'm not talking too much shit. But NoCal Mike said something before, which was, essentially, Lactoid is against DEI, but he hasn't spoke about the fact that you don't have to be against DEI, assuming that they're all qualified, something along those lines, paraphrased. But I think there's this problem when we think about this, that qualified seems to be this line that we draw, and everybody under it is not okay for the job, and everybody above it is okay for the job. And that's just not how it works, right? There is no such thing as qualified. There is more qualified and less qualified. It is a spectrum. There is always somebody who is better than you and worse than you at any particular task or any particular thing. And so when we're having positions say, okay, we're going to set some arbitrary line of qualified, and we're going to set it, perhaps low, and then we're going to, as long as you're qualified, now we're going to introduce the racial discrimination, and everything's all dandy. What the effect of that? The effect of that is identical to just explicit racial discrimination, without any kind of idea of qualified or not, because ideally the candidates that come in that are the most qualified should be the ones that are getting the positions. So the idea that you have Nature magazine, somebody in there, Lynn or Yvette, saying that no, it's a good thing. We're seeing women outperform men. This is a good thing. I think that this highlights what is the common trend, which is that it's equality when I get something, and it's bigotry when you get something. It's the ultimate in self-interested thinking, because I think ultimately these actors are self-interested, and really like all these ideas of equality are not particularly important to them. They're just interest groups that are just trying to further the interests of whatever group that they happen to be a part of. So I'm opposed to all of it, and I think it's a bad idea. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in with your takes you had, and thank you. Check them out, gang, if you'd like. Joe Lewis, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So like, just a little bit of a cleanup. So a lot of what I believe about justice and freedom comes from Hegel, particularly philosophy of right. That's a text of his that deeply influenced. There's a bunch of others, but what I described, Hegel, there's just a crazy word that he describes it as, but basically he saw justice as something embedded within ethical life, and essentially individuals are free through participation in social institutions. Examples he give is the idea of like the state, the family, and others. And that's basically where I get my perspective on rights and justice. Like basically, I won't say I'm a Hegelian or whatever they call themselves, but I'm definitely deeply influenced by them. A concern that I have in conversation is that people don't really read a lot of philosophy, and they just act like they do. And then when they're asked a particular question about a thing, they get really surprised when somebody who reads articulates how they feel about it in agreement with that. And that was kind of where I felt the conversation about justice and freedom came about. Because basically, like, if you want to know my perspective on justice, just read Hegel, Philosophy of Right. And that gets like maybe 40% there of where I feel. That being said, I'm already a partner Twitch streamer. I stream when I can. So I show up on Wix when I can and argue in his Discord. So that's kind of my purpose, my core function. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can. It's Joe Lewis with 2 O's. So JOOELEWIS. Same thing on all other platforms.
Check him out, gang. Thank you for kind of jumping in. I know this wasn't planned, but you were making some comments. I was like, what?
Well, it's glad to be here.
An interesting addition to the panel, and you were. I appreciate you. I appreciate your takes. Reading Hegel, though, I don't know, man. Like, that's some...
He's boring, I know.
Stuff. Dense, okay?
He's dense and boring. The two worst things you can be.
Sure. Let's pass it to Corey Campbell. What do you got with us? Go ahead.
Well, I'll try to close off briefly by attempting to quickly answer your question, where I think the overall question you pose is like, is it an injustice if men are being discriminated and are actually being discriminated against? And the answer that I would give briefly is I would just say potentially. Okay, until I see more data, as in if this trend continues, I would be concerned. But right now, I'm not concerned, and I'll tell you why. And maybe I'm overly confident, but so I'm gonna put a link to a Substack that I wrote in your YouTube chat. Okay, I documented my experience with a company that I was hired, and the original LinkedIn posting that I applied to was there. And I'm going to read something from the posting that's going to make Lactoid cringe real bad. Where at the end of the LinkedIn posting, diversity is ingrained in our company DNA. Currently, 80% of Ellie's team identify as women and 60% as part of another minority group. We are committed to building a truly inclusive environment as an equal opportunity employer. And I think it's fair to say that, I am white presenting and I identify as male, and I got a job at this company. Now, I was fired for, as I argue in what I wrote, I was fired for being too competent, being too meritorious.
Sounds like the kind of company that would do that.
And included in what I wrote are actually audio recordings, secret audio recordings of my final meeting with them, if anyone's interested in reading.
Holy shit, is this real? Do you do secret audio? This is some spy shit, but go ahead.
Absolutely. And I confirmed, so legally, Canada is a one-party consent state, and therefore you don't need permission. Or as long as you're part of the conversation, you can record it. And so I recorded that.
So we're gonna have you on back again to talk about this specifically. I'm very curious.
Be really careful about that, Corey. Just so we're clear. I mean, if you decide to do that.
Well, he's in Canada, so
The act of recording, listening back to it, maybe he has to be thinking about what it means to distribute.
Okay, let him finish his thing. My bad.
It's whatever. It's whatever.
Right? I interrupted, but yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, it's all there, documented, including all the emails, the LinkedIn posting, and the audio recordings from my final meeting with them. And I think my case, I'll let the audience decide, but I think my case is quite strong that I was too competent, and therefore the scientists there wanted to get rid of me. But either way, I still got a job at this company. Okay, I signed their offer letter, and therefore that's why I'm confident. And I also have another job at another biotech company. That's why, whatever. I'm not particularly concerned about being discriminated against as a male in science. So far, hasn't really hurt me all that much. But yeah, this has been great, as always. Super grateful that you invited me on, Wick. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube, Substack. It's Corey Campbell. Wick, Tuna, Lactoid, Joe, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'd be out of here, but no, gang, check them out. And yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that in detail at some point, me and you. Go ahead, Tuna Chip, close us out, send us home.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the basic point for me is that my government takes money from me to fund medicine and science, and to me, every time that I interact with a person, every time that I go to the doctor, I would prefer the best doctors to have treated them and to treat me. And that means that they should be pulling from the best of every pool possible. I don't believe in the magic touch of certain people outside of experience and knowledge, and that's what we should be vetting for. Beyond that, if we end up getting to a point where the methods that allow one group that was historically behind to get better at something brings them to a higher percentage, and we don't take that method and then put it on whoever becomes the smaller percentage afterwards, it means that we didn't believe in the methodology for increasing that percentage at all. We thought that it was a way to climb. It's sort of a ladder kicking measure. So I believe that there are financial incentives that are making it so that smart people in demographics are actually sticking with the long-term goal of medicine. I think it should be spread, but I think that it should be spread earlier. Simple as that. Anyway, you can find me here on Twitch. You can find me on YouTube. It's all fucking Tuna Chip. Easy as can be.
All fucking Tuna Chip. What a life. What a motto to live by. It's all fucking Tuna Chip, bro. That's all. No, check him out, gang. Thanks for being here. Sorry you didn't get to be on for a long time, right? But Lola's whining at me, and I must
feed the dog, bro.
I just cut off her legs. No walking required.
He's been fed, but she needs a walk, or she's gonna go crazy.
She needs to shit.
Probably, and I don't want it to be in my house. We do this thing, right, where there's squirrels in the woods, right, like the thing. And so when we go on a walk, I let her briefly chase those squirrels. So she goes and she runs around the tree. She barks at them. And then after about 2 minutes of that, I held up the leash and she comes back and we release her. It's really good. We're training her good. Gang, please like the stream, subscribe to the channel. We're going to end the stream. I love you all. See you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Corey, I want to ask you a question. I don't know if Wick, you're still.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Oh,
but
shit.
Yeah, you guys can stay as long as you like.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask. You said that you don't feel discriminated as a white man in science. How do you know? How do you know that you couldn't be, I don't know, teaching at this Smithsonian or some shit right now if only
You're right.
you had darker skin?
That's why I said I don't feel. It could be happening.
Feel.
But
Well,
I don't
statistically,
feel.
it probably is happening, right? You might not feel it, but
Yeah. Well, it's just like, what, like, yeah, obviously you're right. I don't have the alternate timeline of what
Right.
happened. Well, I mean, at the very least, well, what we just went through is, I think, is largely applicable to, like, university faculty. Maybe it's happening in companies, I don't know, but I don't think there's really hard data there. But I haven't applied for a university faculty position. So I like, yeah, that's why, like, I don't think, and it doesn't apply to me. I have no interest in becoming university faculty. So, like, until whatever, if I have a change of heart and I start applying for university faculty positions, although I wouldn't qualify for those anyway, since I don't have that type of resume or CV. But if I was being I felt like I was being discriminated against, or I felt like I was qualified and being turned away, then I might be singing a different tune. But, like, so far I haven't felt the effects, but I don't actually know. It might be happening, but I don't have any complaints.
Have you ever had to fill out a diversity statement? And then go ahead, tuna chip, after I get the answer to that.
I've got a question that extends off this, so we can go into
I have had to, like, fill out or check off boxes of, like, what group do you belong to, white, whatever, and, like, I've had to check off boxes of, like, are you part of do you have a disability, or are you part of a visible minority? And in Canada, are you part of the indigenous population? But I don't know what you mean exactly. If that's a diversity statement for you, then yes, I have to check off. I've checked off those boxes.
It's a little bit different. So, like writing a paper about what kind of diversity or what diversity means to you, etc. But you can go ahead, Tuna.
I haven't written those essays.
I've thought about this one before in a couple of different lights. How do I put this? Some people would agree and some people wouldn't, and I think that it might be cope to agree with the statement, but I think it would really suck to get a job because I'm black. Like, because it would mean that in the same uncertainty that you have about whether or not you've been discriminated against, you'll also have the same uncertainty about whether or not you got a chance because you showed increasing aptitude, or if it was just because you were black, or just because you were a woman.
Clarence Thomas said this almost verbatim. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might result in more imposter syndrome. Do I actually belong here? Do I actually have the same skills as my peers if I was just hired based off my skin? Like, yeah, those are all legitimate concerns. Absolutely.
I think I would comfort myself, though, with my Ivy League degree. I think I'd be okay. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, but I mean, I also then, from the position that I'm in, I am an engineer. I am a white man. There's a huge overlap there in what people talk about. But even beyond that, I have the challenges that I have. I have a quote unquote forever learning job, and medicine and engineering and pretty much any scientific job is going to be a forever learning job. I sometimes wonder whether or not that imposter syndrome thing that we're talking about, because the fields constantly talk about this imposter syndrome thing, whether or not it's becoming worse because we actually are filtering for more imposters. Software devs talk about this all the time, where there's this constant culture of like, oh, everything seems like it's on fire. I don't know how anything works. Nobody knows how it works, bro. And it's actually just fewer people are being encouraged to stay in school long enough to become specialized. Fewer people are being trained on the things that matter. And they're, being given more and more tools that make things easier and easier. I think about this even just individually as tools change, where if I'm 40 years from now, I know that I'm going to be dumb as dirt. My brain's going to rot. I'm going to be slowing down and things are going to get faster.
You're mid-20s, late 20s?
No, I'm 31.
Okay, no, you'll be 70. So, no,
70. 70. I'm talking about in my position. I'm talking about like around retirement age. it is going to be like, if retirement exists the way that I want it to, there is going to be a justifiable reason for me to no longer be in my job, because I am going to slow down. There's going to be enough new stuff I'm not going to be able to keep up with. I'm not going to have the same time and the same plasticity as younger people. But what if I, in 10 years, felt that hard limit happen? Like, oh, I got the job because of my race or something. 10 years later, suddenly I see other people who are getting the job for qualification. Do you really want to feel like you're dumber than your 10? It's like just one of those things that happens in the field. And that's probably what we're going to be looking at if we get rid of DEI, is we're going to have a whole bunch of, we're going to have a new problem. All the superiors are dumb and they're making the decisions, and they have like seniority, so they're moving up. And all the young people that are being hired in the like the nitty gritty, are we going to do sort of like a period of time where everybody who's in their 30s gets fired and everybody who's like in their early 20s got there because they deserved it? Like, this is, I think, the tricky part about getting rid of DEI is like, do you flip a switch? Do you just suddenly make it harder to get into a job?
I don't think it's all that tricky, though. It's like, wouldn't you rather have the blind leading the seeing as opposed to the blind leading the blind?
It's not that. It's that, I guess.
I would, because that's diverse, Lactoid.
No. But think about it, like, you're saying, like, oh, well, what if like the superiors are going to be less qualified than the interns? And I think that sort of does happen often regarding the decline of brain plasticity that you were referring to. But I understand what you're saying in terms of the DEI, right?
But
like,
having it happen so early, like, it makes it like, I have two people in my company, two people above me that are about to retire in the next 2 years. I think one of them's a year and a half and one's like in half a year. People above me are going to move up to them. They're like 15, 20 years older than me. I feel really confident that for a majority of my career, those people are going to be clever, and they are going to be, and that they are smart, and that they got their job because they deserve the job. But what if the people filling out those positions are genuinely dumb and they're moving up because of seniority? I'm just going to leave. I would leave that job.
Or they're going to be more likely to be let go and have that opportunity open up for you.
Do we think that's true? Because
I think so.
A lot of those managerial positions require less aptitude and more delegation.
Well, if that is the case, then look, if it's not such a big deal that because it doesn't require that much aptitude, then it doesn't sound like there's going to be a major problem anyway. But if it is a big deal,
I'm talking about from like the behavior of employees. It's demoralizing, and people tend to leave jobs where they don't respect their superiors.
I don't know.
That's the worry I have.
I don't know how true that is personally. I mean, but sure.
Maybe when they have enough opportunity. It depends on the field, maybe. Obviously,
it's a running meme in law that like the associates like clean up the shit that partners put out. Like, it's a running meme. But I mean, it could be different per field. I think that there's like two worlds. One world in which they are incompetent, but because their job is delegation, it doesn't really matter all that much. And then the other world is that their job, acuity does matter. And in that case, the ones that their acuity is below a certain threshold, they're probably not going to make it in the job, and then they're probably going to be removed if the acuity actually does matter. And so I think either way, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue.
I think maybe maybe a missing element is that, because I think that quote unquote DEI, I think for a lot of people, they think that it selects for race, but I think that it selects for narcissism usually, because you don't just go into a field that you're not fit to be in. It's not like people are going to your door, knocking you down, being like, I saw how dark your skin was on the road. Here, you should go into college. It's like people who are like, they have an overinflated sense of their ability. It becomes affirmed through the nature of the thing. My concern is about just what it means to put people that don't know what they're doing, regardless of denomination, above. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
but even if you're not wrong, even if this is like a phenomenon that occurs, like the solution can't be, well, we got to maintain this level of mediocrity, so the order remains. Like, no, we can't have that.
Well, I just think that part of it is not just mediocrity, but like duplicity. Like, where I'm talking about like people who would like actively sabotage other people's careers in order to keep them up would run a business into the ground. Like, but maybe that when it comes down to it,
probably.
And that does happen. That does happen, obviously. But
I don't from what I understand,
as a person who, as a CEO, you would have to, or somebody, whoever is the superior to the wart, you would just have to cut them out. You'd have to recognize the miasma or whatever.
Yeah, from what I'm understanding, what you're saying to it, it's like given DEI, like in whatever companies or institutions, like there's now this layer of people or employees that are just like not as competent as they would be or should be as a result of DEI. And then if we get rid of that, like that layer is going to like have all these effects. Pretty much like that layer's from a top-down approach is now just going to affect everything. If we get rid of DEI, we need to maintain that layer.
Exactly. And I'm not even saying that you should keep DEI because of it. I'm saying that instead of looking at this as a position where we take what it was before and we just go straight back to it immediately, effectively.
Right.
That's why I think what we're supposed to be doing is just, especially with industrialization, younger people are feel older than they did at those ages. It just feels like we should be specializing way earlier and filtering people way earlier.
That's a separate conversation for me.
If you disagreed about that earlier, actually.
I strongly disagree with early. At least from what I gather from, let's say, the sports world, like early specialization in sports doesn't seem to lead to like elite outcomes. People seem to assume that you just stick a golf club in a baby's hand, they're going to be Tiger Woods. Doesn't seem to pan out that way from the
not that early, man. But I'm saying like
I'm being hyperbolic.
In the same way that when you give a person a piano at 6 or 7, something that's not putting them at risk of getting a traumatic brain injury, you are giving them anything before 11. When you start getting into that era where you build your sense of aptitude and your sort of self-esteem and industriousness, something around that, anything before then, I think is a good opportunity just to give some. I feel terrible for anybody who didn't get into art or music before they became a teenager, because what was being a teenager about? Just how sexy or strong you were? It usually was something that was going to fade with age, not something that would continue to be a part of your identity and to improve throughout the entirety of your life. It was something that there's a hard wall and you're just going down from. So like in that same way, I think that we need to make it so that instead of being like, I'm the kid who likes social studies more than math, that level of generality to a kid's understanding of their education at that age, I would want a kid to be able to like pick what generation, what era, what country they're going to be studying the history of. We have all the technology to make it so that it's possible to do that on a broader scale. I don't know why we're not doing it. Or
I don't think kids know what they want to do. That's the problem.
I also tend to align with that as well. Like it depends on like I agree with you. There's some sort of cutoff, okay, but if you're saying like start specializing. I think you mentioned age 11, as in you want to specialize after or before age 11.
Like I want to get them at least before 11. I don't care up until then what it is, but I want to have a kid start thinking about what they could be good at before around 11. I mean, obviously developmental progression is different for everybody, but.
Yeah, no, I take your point. To me that's a whole separate conversation, but I'll just say that I think there's already a pretty decent amount of pressure on kids today to like figure like their career trajectory, like even like before getting to university. Like
I think they're smarter now. I think it's good. I think it's causing some anxiety disorders, but I'm willing to have that be the price compared to just like people that aren't smart, have no decisiveness in life. I'd rather everybody be on fucking Zoloft if we increase the GDP.
Yeah, that's a whole can of
Yeah,
that was a bit of an edgy sentence. I'm not
edgy.
completely married to that point, but it's like that's like a general concept. I just don't think that it's. I don't think that it's as much. We've had a really long time now of being anti-hustle, and
but we
I think
can be pro hustle, but be also not pro specialization at a younger age.
when do you think a person should start specializing by, if at all?
I think it depends on the person. Generally, I think that people should look into special. Now, I guess for me, my timeline was after high school, like in college, was when I guess I found the thing that I was specializing in. And to be frank with you, maybe I was a little bit later than other people. But I mean, most kids in college will switch their major. Most kids in high school will switch between different jobs. The average American has like 11 different jobs in their lifetime, something along those lines. I mean, people move around all the time. What I think is much more important, the hustle culture that you were just talking about, I think that's the point that I was going to make. I don't think that's the same thing as specialization, though. I think that like hustle culture can be widely applicable to really any kind of job you go into. And yeah, we should be teaching kids at a very young age the idea of like personal responsibility, like generally applicable skills, good reading, good comprehension, understanding a situation, finances, et cetera, like all the things that are going to be relevant to wherever you go, right? And then make you like really fucking good at all of that. And then like now you can try different things. It's like, oh shit, I found something that I really, really love. That allows them to specialize into that so much easier now that they have this base. But I do agree. I think part of the issue, perhaps, frankly, is that we might be having a little bit too much specialization too early, right? We're instead of teaching kids, I think, things like critical thinking and finances and generally applicable things, we're teaching them the ins and outs of some obscure, literary novel from the 1800s, which I understand that can be part of reading comprehension, but is it always? Or like, I know the typical easy conservative, target, gender ideology studies, et cetera, various courses and classes like that are hyper specific, hyper nuanced, like not particularly useful to anything outside of that specific field. I don't think that's a good angle that we're going down, or good path that we're going down.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I know
if you want to take a second, you can as well.
So I think it's an open question, let's say when it comes to specializing in academics, but at least if it holds true of what we see in, let's say, the athlete world, okay? Like there are specific studies devoted to this. Like the title of this study, what makes a champion? Early multidisciplinary practice, not early specialization, predicts world-class performance. So people have this intuition of like the earlier the better, especially when it comes to athletic performance. That doesn't seem to be borne out in the data. And also, if you look in the backgrounds, like if you actually truly look at the elite athletes, what we consider the world's best, like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, they all explored multiple sports growing up. Of like Tom Brady also played volleyball and a bunch of other sports. Okay, and I'll link this study in the group chat, although you're not part of it. But yes, pretty much we illustrate parallels from science. Nobel laureates had multidisciplinary study working experience and slower early progress than did national level award winners. The findings suggest that variable multidisciplinary practice experiences are associated with gradual initial discipline-specific progress, but greater sustainability of long-term development of excellence. Where again, people, it's just counter to the intuition. People think early specialization is good. It is not. It's bad intuition.
Maybe I need to redefine, because maybe specialization isn't the right word for what I'm saying. Because I'm not trying to say that kids should stop learning math, stop learning social studies, stop learning literature, or any of these things. I think there are some things that are too general in their subject matter, and that way earlier than people take for granted. And maybe I'm also speaking from personal experience and a shared experience with people who are like me. Because I did go into special education eventually, once we got into high school, and I did do individualized education both in high school and college, where I was taking on essays optionally that were separated from the general. And I think that if I hadn't done that, I would have felt the same way that I've basically always felt with school, is that it's slop for pigs. None of this is important. This is the most boring thing of all time. I can't stop thinking about how much I want to put a rail through my head. It's like, I don't think that kids want to do a cursory recap of the history of the world, find something that's slightly interesting to them, and then have to not invest in that curiosity during school, where it's, where they have the resources and they have the environment that theoretically they'd be able to go deeper into the thing without it being extracurricular, without it being paid for, without joining a group or something that they might not have at their high school or location or something. I think that the way we should be doing things is that up until a certain grade, I think that it's supposed to be during junior high. At some point in that age area, you should be doing a pivot where a person doesn't just do a generalized history of the United States. Oh, this is peanut butter. Oh, this is slaves, Trail of Tears, and then move on. They should be able to get high school credits from non-general education, especially if they're doing well. In high school, we have AP classes. It just feels too fucking late. It feels way too late. If you're going to be learning how to take apart an engine and put it together or something, there's all kinds of skills that you can do that you're not encouraged to do. Everything that you're able to do, you're not allowed to specialize at all. That's my issue. It's not I want to force everybody to specialize because I think that everybody that specializes, it'll create a better outcome. I'm saying when people are ready for specialization, it's not even a fucking option until college, unless their parents have the money and they live in the right place for it.
So I don't disagree. Like, I guess it just means on what exactly or how you want to implement your type of specialization. But generally, from what I'm seeing, like, early specialization doesn't seem and also part of it is informed by my own personal experience, where Lactoid mentioned that, he discovered his passion for law, or being, I don't know if it's actual passion, but I assume there's some sort of passion for it. But his tolerance for being a lawyer and law at a somewhat...
His passion for lying and being in a liar's environment.
I don't think, yeah.
It's just like, what would the passion be? I love getting
arguing.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Although, well, maybe Lactoid's reevaluating, like, maybe he wanted, it wasn't the type of argument that he wanted in law, and he's looking for another type of argument. Maybe that's why he got into debates. And also that's informed by also, again, my personal experience. So, like, I had a passion for science from an early age. Like, I was the nerd with the chemistry set and, a basic microscope when I was a child. But I didn't actually know, I didn't know whether it was physics, chemistry, biology, whatnot. And that early exposure to, multiple fields and allowed me to explore is only late. It's only when I sort of, haphazardly, but, pretty much through process of elimination. It's like, I know physics isn't for me. I know hardcore chemistry wasn't a passion of mine. And then I, started exploring biology. And then from there, more exploration I found.
I have an analogy that might make this the easiest. Almost every school, I would say every school, but who knows? Ponds, right? Have a band or have some music course, if it's an orchestra or anything. And the kids that go into that learn how to play an instrument and read music and operate inside of that function. But over half of them don't continue to play their instrument after, which is fine. But the ones that do last longer tend to be the ones that pick an instrument that is common, affordable, that they are able to own without a loan or something, because that's currently the barrier. So, people that learn guitar, people that learn bass, some people that learn violin, you can get a cheap violin, but you're not becoming a lifelong tubist. You're not going to play tuba. You'll probably turn snare into a drum set or something. That is an opportunity to off-ramp onto specialization that exists outside of education because of how affordable those instruments are. Libraries, for what they are, the internet, for what it is, it doesn't have the same like the resources are there, they're free, but it's not like you can just go to the library and say, I want to learn about this period of time in history when you're 13. You don't know that. You go there and you grab a book because the cover is interesting, or maybe like you got to sign something and you can comment author or something. We don't have a guitar teacher who sits down and shows you a band you've never heard of for literature. Not really. Maybe you have a brother. I want something like that inside of schools for every subject, and I want it so that kids are getting credit and that their education can go into specialization, because that is going to be how we get good data about who should even be allowed to go to college. We waste a lot of money on Pell Grants. I would be much more interested in giving that to people that have proved aptitude before college.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't super disagree, but I think there's. I think college should be a place to explore. Like, for me, I perceive a problem. Like, I know Lactoid does not agree with my stance of like free public education, especially at the university level. But like, yeah, I think part of the problem, at least for me, is like people, once they have to choose their major in university or college, and like, since there's that financial aspect to it, like, they've already sunk money into it, like literally, or taken a loan. It's like, well, yeah, they can't switch. And I think there's value in switching. I think there's value in like whatever, pursuing the humanities, and like whatever turns out it's not for you. Like, you didn't like it. Like to me, and same thing. Like, I have no problem with someone saying like, well, I want to pursue whatever psychology. And like, even like pursue it to a high level, like whatever, semi-completing a bachelor's degree, and then like realizing that it's not for them. Like, I think. Yeah, I think that is largely a good thing. I think most people, generally speaking, don't truly know where their strengths lie until later on. Just as Lactoid's strength in arguing, okay, he maybe thought lawyer, okay, but I think he probably even recognized himself that like the type of arguing that he wants to engage in and is his strength, even though I'm sure he's a great lawyer and it's a strength of his, like. It's not a one-to-one transfer, and there's probably a better job out there that allows him to actually fully utilize his skills as arguing and logic.
Like a Twitch streamer. But I wanted to one thing that I will say. I don't know if you'll agree with this, Tuna Chip, but I sort of somewhat agree with the position that you're putting forward. But I wouldn't have it be like a specialization thing. I would have it, unfortunately, be just like a like, let's be realistic about what kinds of jobs that certain people are going to be able to really excel in based on their aptitude. So, in Germany, I'm pretty sure you can leave high school early, like 2 years early, to go into some kind of trade. I think that if you got a kid who is, 80 IQ, low test scores, low reading scores, low comprehension generally, maybe steering them towards things like, welding, mechanic work, public works work, shit like that earlier might be good. I'm not opposed to that. I agree with you when you said like we were throwing away money on Pell Grants. We want to make sure that resources and opportunities going to people who are going to be able to utilize it. I agree with that.
We have this opportunity. Maybe I'm interrupting because you agree, but maybe just to respond to what you were saying, Campbell, Corey. Why is the exploration, why does it have to happen in college? Why isn't it happening in high school? Why are we making it so that they have to be doing gen ed during high school? Do you think is it just because of the age? You think they're not ready to explore because of their age? What is it?
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I'm open to it, but I'm not sure that like a 12 or 13-year-old has the cognitive capacity to like fully appreciate like high level science and like research in a lab. Like most of the experiments that they get exposed to is like, oh, let's make some pretty colors and make things explode. It's not day-to-day science. If anything, that misleads children to think like, oh, I'm going to do explosions all day in the lab. Sorry, unless you're like a rocket science or whatever, you're actually researching dynamite.
They're still figuring out the basics in high school, right? Like they're figuring out like just like basic shit, and it can be very difficult when you're just figuring out the basics to know like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Sure, it's a good thing to ask yourself and to keep in mind like, what do I tend to like more or not? But I agree with Corey actually. I think that there's a longer time period perhaps.
Okay. Let me phrase this because I'm not I'm not trying to say that like most kids. I'm saying across all of the classes, I would hope that your child has one that they would want to do a specialized form in, one that they've shown enough aptitude and cleverness and interest in that they could take on extra assignments in the way that we have for many AP classes. For a small number of those kids, I would like to think that we could make it so that instead of AP classes being something, we take this model where kids that are excelling can get college credits by going through this specific type of thing. I would like to see it so that there's a mandatory specialization, one subject, you just have to pick one, and it requires that you do guided individual education. I mean, outside of maybe being in special ed, or, really, if you can't find anything you're curious about at all that you could do a specialization in. I'm not saying every kid needs to specialize in every single one. That would be insane. That'd be a waste of time. But something before college where a person is challenged to be more, because I think it's invited to be more curious. I don't think that it's just challenging. When I was a child, I never once thought of history and I'm talking high school child, the relevant period. I never once thought, even asked myself, which generation of history would I be more curious in learning more about instead of moving to the next year and learning more? I did ask that of myself about math. I did ask myself that about music. Something, anything at all, lunged forward to me. Now, it might end up being that people always pick reading, like a bunch of girls pick the reading because everyone finds it easy to know that they like reading and they would like to read their own book. Everybody likes to be more agentive with reading, seemingly. Same thing with music. Maybe you're just going to have it so that every kid's in reading and music because they also are forms of media consumption generally. But wouldn't you think that would be better to make it so that kids can at least have something when they're going into, be it junior college, normal college, community college, something where they have an idea, as opposed to they're going in there and all they know is they want to suck, they want to fuck, they want to experiment for 4 years, picking different majors, flip-flopping, and then eventually, after wasting tens of thousands of dollars each, work at Kmart. It just feels like a mess of a society.
Well, not that I advocate for the aspect of exploration of just, sucking and fucking. That's not necessarily the type of.
I mean, you should suck and you should fuck, but my God.
Yeah,
not suck. Fuck maybe, but no.
Yeah, consensually, and there's something to explore there, but yeah, I don't think college, university, I think there's too much exploration. There's too much emphasis on that at the university level, in my opinion. And I even think whatever sororities and fraternities are pretty stupid. But if you're essentially just arguing for earlier AP type classes or exposure to that, I'm not against that per se. Aren't you almost just somewhat advocating of whatever skipping grades also?
I mean, I'm not. Skipping grades might be valuable for some people. I'm saying that every child should have to be brought to the question earlier. What in this world are you capable of being curious in? Not you must be curious, period. But from junior high forward, other than the English class essay where they say make an argumentative essay and you are able to be creative about it, you should be able to just say, and I think you should be forced to answer the question and have a class of the year where you are specialized and you have a final essay, which is a research topic, or you have a final presentation, or you spend the entire year learning a piece of music that you have to perform. I look at the younger people of other countries and I'm extremely jealous about the fact that they are giving their children challenges. I think the fact that they are giving them the same challenge without it being voluntary, which one they do, is bad. I think we can do something. We have to push kids harder than we're doing, in my opinion, or else they're just going to grow up to be rotters.
If you just want to foster and cultivate curiosity, my concern is, I don't know if I'm actually advocating for this, but my concern is like, you want to like plant the seed of like kids should be thinking about their careers, earlier than they are currently. And if you want to just foster curiosity overall, like I'm all for that. Of like, hey, what are your strengths? And like maybe not what are your weaknesses, but like what are you good at? What do you excel at? And like if you want to just foster an overall exploration earlier, I'm not fundamentally opposed to that. But if you are wanting to like plant the seed of like you got to think about your career now, I tend to err on like not doing that.
They can think about it. They just shouldn't have to like really commit, I think, until
No. When the brain chip is there, I want that thought actively suppressed.
Like, look, I mean, maybe this is just my personal bias because like I fucking changed majors, and really I didn't know I was going to law school until like 2 months before I got accepted. So.
And even now, probably your appreciation and your view of law is different now that you have experience with it and you've seen whatever behind the curtain, as opposed to like before. And I don't know if you have the cognitive capacities to like really understand what everything that entails being a lawyer at like 12 years old, right?
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. Exactly. I don't think any high schooler can really understand what a career is like to do every day, unless it's Kmart. I think that they could understand that, but ideally, they wouldn't be going to college if they were going to work at Kmart.
Do you think that they could if they were challenged just to start investigating it earlier?
I'm okay with the idea of like giving high schoolers and college kids like a lot of opportunity to try different things. I think that's a great idea. Obviously, I think that there's a base level thing which should be like general life skills and general job skills. Not being an asshole, being hardworking, like understanding finances, blah, 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 blah. All that's so good, right? Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to like, what about the specific skills? Well, giving people a wide variety, and we try to do that with like extracurriculars, for example. And I think those are good. I think that if anybody, at least my experience was the reason why I think college was so great for me in a way that high school wasn't, was because I took advantage of all those extracurriculars. But it also gives you a window into what other people are doing and like what jobs, opportunities there are, and what jobs they're doing. So I mean, here's what I think. I think that people should be expected to work different jobs alongside their education. I did, right? For all the years that I went to university, I worked different jobs, and I think that should be kind of the expectation. This idea of, I'm going to have spring and summer break off, that should not be the expectation. The expectation is I'm going to study whatever I'm studying during the year. Summer comes, summer job, summer internship, summer something. And you're going to be busy all summer doing something, because this idea of like a very long break is, I don't think, good.
No, I mean, I don't think that a very long break is a good idea. I mean, and it's only made available to people because of opportunities given to them by their parents that are unconditional.
Yeah.
And this is the failure. This is what we were talking about before. And one of the things I was
I didn't have that. Just to be clear, like I didn't have that opportunity.
Joe left as fast as he possibly could. Maybe he's got to talk to people on his stream about something else. But it was one of those things where I'm shocked to hear out of a black man in America the idea that there isn't like a good reason, there isn't good cause to start like pulling cultural value from other places, because like what could possibly be more important between like class ascendancy other than a mixture of financial, like what would you call it? What would you call it, like the home planning classes that they do? What's going to be more valuable for a person if they're low income than knowing how to not get scammed? Because I know most poor people, that's why they're poor for the rest of their life. They're getting scammed constantly. They don't even recognize half of the scams that are happening to them as them being scammed. They're buying shit.
Or they're just impulsive, right?
Or they're impulsive, which would be me being too flexible with the word scam. So I'll put that out there too. Some people it's a personal failing. Some it's the moral failing of people engaging with them. But also the people engaging with them, are usually other poor people being impulsive to scam them. So it's a mess. If you were able to make it so that people were stricter with their kids and they were saying like, you are not going to leave the house unless you have certain grades, like so many people have, or you are not going to be able to date unless you have the income to support a family if you get pregnant. Like, these are the things that make or break. And these are the conversations that are happening inside of Black America. Joe wants to get rid of the state, but he doesn't want to have stronger families. What does he want? It just seems strange to me. But yeah, moving beyond. Let's say, because I wanted to respond to Fairy Queen's thing, and maybe you guys saw, but where Fairy Queen's saying that the main reason for high school to exist at all is to make it so that kids are not getting involved in things they shouldn't be, whether or not it's drugs, crime, pregnancy, or just going into manual labor without knowing what the worth of their time and how competent they could be with a higher paying career, et cetera, things like that.
Well, and also teaching them to read and write better. I mean, I'm not opposed to the parents doing that, but most parents, since they have jobs, or at least one parent has a job, it's like we sort of outsourced that to whatever.
Well, maybe that's a problem.
I agree. No parent should work, and it should be state funded.
No parent should work.
Isn't that what greater incentive to have children, right? To solve our birthing crisis and fertility crisis, then it's like, if you have a kid, you got a free ride, right? I'm obviously joking, but yeah, like
the sad thing is it wouldn't do anything.
We
people already feel like it's a free ride, and those are the ones that have the birds, and then other people, they're like, there is no price for my freedom. Nothing is more important than being unencumbered.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's certainly a part of it is like to keep kids out of trouble, right? Sort of as a distraction, but also as to also as like a babysitting again, to when their parents are away or doing other things. But I think I don't know how exactly high school is in United States, but I think it's largely the same in Canada. Of I don't want children maxing out at reading and writing at the elementary school level. That seems like a problem for me.
I think they kind of already are. This is maybe the reason that this is the main reason I brought up Fairy Queen's thing. And I live in a city. I have a lot of friends that are teachers. What I'm describing is basically what's already happening in schools, because students can't be forced to care about something at all. The only students that are paying attention in class already are talking to the teacher afterwards, are asking them questions, are going on the internet studying things. I just think it would be a better use of our money to meet the kids where they are and just recognize that there are a bunch of people that are content living cheap lives with low standards, and then there are other people who are curious, that we should be rewarding their curiosity so that they don't turn into a sort of like ADHD fail baby because they can't pay attention to an education that was made to be ignored for kids that ignore it. That's my concern, is that we're adapting to the bad kids and not adapting to the good ones.
As in, we're adapting to the lowest common denominator, pretty much.
Which, strangely enough, is also the highest population in classes now. At some point,
it's been a long time since I've been in elementary or high school, so I don't know how the current. Although I interact with Gen Z because I teach them.
Sure.
But that's the extent of. I don't know how. Yeah, basically I don't know how the young kids are doing.
I know that the teachers that I know, which are a literature teacher in high school, art teacher in high school, and then a gen ed teacher in junior high and elementary. I think he's doing junior high now. The experience of the first two, especially the art teacher, but partially the literature teacher because he's also a musician and he lets his kids know about it and he has posters of music stuff. Their experience is so much different than the gen ed teacher. All of the kids are just talking, yelling. They do not pay attention in class. You can get their attention, but if you get their attention, it's mostly you get their silence. You get their ignoring one another and you, as opposed to ignoring one another, focusing on you and actually doing the thing. With the others, they get that percentage of people that are interested in specializing in something. The class basically becomes, what do the curious kids in class respond well to? And then also, here's what the homework is. Here's a little bit of, they only plan for like 1/3 of the amount of lecture time that they could reasonably. And it seems like an adaptation that's already happening for it. And then the rest of it is like answering questions of the few kids that actually engage with the content.
Yeah.
And, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I only have my own experience and lens to look through, which is outdated. And so like, I have no what the current, I'll take your word for it. All I can say is like, I've had, overall I had a positive experience in elementary and high school of like, yeah, I was whatever. I was a gifted student, and I was placed in an advanced math and advanced English in high school. I didn't end up pursuing any of those, right? So, like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was like sufficient. I feel like I was getting the attention, the sufficient attention. But again, it might be totally different now. But I didn't feel.
I had the so I got kicked out for disciplinary reasons of high school. During my second year of high school, during the third year of junior high. And then I was in disciplinary for the first two, and then I transitioned into primary. And the only thing that made me interested in anything other than music, the thing that made it so that I cared about math at all and cared about history, philosophy, literature at all, was that the classes were really small inside of the disciplinary community or academy. If it wasn't for that, and if it wasn't for the fact that if you weren't like throwing a chair or calling somebody like cracker bitch or something, like you were able to talk to the teacher afterwards, I would have never even thought that there's anything interesting to learn in education, because I mostly thought of it as a social domain. It's the place where kids are. Now, with bigger schools, I think that is the problem. Like, size is a thing, but then it's also like, can the teachers, if they want, engage in specialized education with the kids? Or do they have to, with the earlier grades, as everybody kind of knows, match some standard of generalized knowledge from everybody from testing? That's probably the easiest way to make a change with, I don't know what Canada has right now versus America, but we have
communism.
Standardized testing.
I've got a hop. Was that a question to Corey specifically, or can I ask a quick question to both of you to get your takes on it before I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just ask my final question to you before you leave, Lactoid.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is somewhat relevant to some of the things we've been talking about. Seattle was controversially closed down a highly gifted program. This was in 2024 because too high of a percentage of the students were white and Asian, and too low the percentage were Black and Hispanic. And so the gifted program shut down because it was too racially inequitable. Assuming that what I've said is correct, what are your thoughts on that?
On paper, it sounds bad, but I would need to look into more details on whether it's actually bad. If it really is just like, too many white kids succeeding and not enough minorities succeeding, then like I'm not in favor of that, but I'll have to do more digging. As of right now, it doesn't sound good, put it that way.
I mean, for me, the obvious thing is they're going to wake up Asian or white the next day and still have an Asian or white family and an Asian and white context that made it so that they were smart enough. So like, on one hand, they're still going to be just as clever. The question is whether or not smart people should be given money for being smart, or do they have to be brown too? I mean, it seems stupid to say that we need to only give them the money for their race at that point. Also, like, what is the implication? Black doctors or how do I say this? Black people get Asian doctors and white doctors, or we all benefit from the smartest people in our society. I've found it really strange, this idea that we should hold back the smartest people until we get all of the smartest people of the lowest represented populations into higher positions first. It seems cart before horse, because those people could become teachers for early education that make Black children perform better and get into the very same accelerated learning that the Black kids that they are the same age as currently are not able to get into. It's just like, it seems stupid. It seems like this idea of like Chinese people only spend money on Chinese people, Black people only help Black people. It's a segregation fever dream conspiracy when people say it.
So yeah, before you go, Loctoid, although I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So I understand I'll recognize that you're an American lawyer and you're an American and you can't give legal advice. But when I brought up that a recorded conversation, one-party consent, you said be very careful of that. Where was that coming from? Or what are your concerns?
Frankly, and I mean, I'm still screaming. Are you comfortable with me talking about it on stream, Corey, or would you rather have this conversation? Okay. My concerns here would be...
If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Here's would be my initial concerns. And this is not obviously legal
as
advice.
A friend.
I'm not licensed in whatever fucking Canadian hellscape you're living in. At least in America, what I would say is, I'm not saying to not do it, but depending on how you phrase things, characterize things, I'd be worried about defamation in that particular situation, right? Because what could happen is, you're very critical of a employer. The employer could say, "Wow, you're taking this way out of context. You're saying defamatory statements. We're gonna," and it's about a former employee, so they'd probably be more apt to take action potentially. So that was just the concern I was having and why I was saying to be careful. Which is obviously you're a free person, you can do what you want, but employer ex-employee relationships are already pretty tenuous, and I just wouldn't want to see anything bad happen to you. That's all.
No. That's why I take your concerns seriously, because I know that it's coming from a place of caring. I'm like, yeah. So the only thing that I can say is all of my commentary. I don't comment like I've tried to make it mostly just like this is a documentation of the events that happened. As I see it from my perspective, and no real commentary of like, oh, bad company or like whatever. Or I pretty much like try to restrain the language of like characterizing or putting my opinion on the company anywhere in there. So I'm hoping that if in fact what I'm saying is true, that hopefully protects me from any sort of like defamation, even if like a company want to pursue that.
Look, I don't know how it is in Canada, but in America, I mean, and people file suit over all sorts of shit. So I don't know.
But from what I understand, proving defamation is pretty high. The bar is pretty high. Like I'd have to the language that I'd have to use. I think would have to be like pretty strong. Oh, like put it like whatever. I don't swear anywhere in the article or anything like that.
Well, swearing wouldn't matter. It has to do with whether or not they feel as though they've been defamed, right? Whether the statements are false and whether that's caused them any kind of economic loss.
Yeah, fair enough. I appreciate the concern, and I got to take that into account before I start massively
ripping on them. Yeah, it's kind of a shame, but no, it's something just to be wary of. That's all. I'm not saying to don't sunlight could be the best disinfectant, but I don't know. Like CoffeeZilla, I mean, he gets sued all the time, despite the fact that he does God's work, right? I mean, that's not going to stop people from suing him.
Well, yeah, as in like starting the process, but like, do you happen to know? I don't expect you to know, but do you happen to know like whatever? Like, is he like now found guilty and like yes?
I don't know if I don't think they're going to beat him, but lawyers charge by the hour.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, yeah, they're just hoping that he doesn't have the financial resources, right? Like this is just like the typical. The company has the resources.
Slap suits, yeah.
They're just gonna.
Yeah, slap suits where you don't think you're gonna win, but you're just like fuck it, we'll sue him just to because them having to pay legal fees. We have a bigger pocket, so them having to pay legal fees is going to be harder for them than it is for us.
We can just drain them over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not good. All right. Well, all things to weigh in my mind, but I've had it proofread by iCow and Eucharist, and they pretty much, at least from their perspective, it's also like this is just like a documentation of events that occurred, and there's no spin per se, or at least the spin is like minimal. I'm not doing any sort of character assassination.
Are you going to be identifying the company, or are you leaving it anonymous?
Oh no, it's the company's like, yeah, it's explicit. Like,
okay, all right.
It's in the title of the article, but
Are you
include
worried at all about what it does about future hireability?
Yeah, that's the other concern I have.
You should read it, because I think I address all the concerns in there. Where that paragraph number 1, aside from paragraph 1 saying, hey, there's audio recordings, I checked the legality of this even before I took the audio recordings. And the second paragraph is, I know this probably hurts future employability, but like whatever. That's why like I'm largely self-employed, and also like it hasn't stopped me from being hired from another company. Oh, I see that someone wants me to link it. Okay, I will do that. But yeah, thank you. Well, and if you're interested in reading it, Lactoid, I'd appreciate. But it's a 20-30 minute read, so I understand it's a time investment. But I'd be curious on your perspective on it.
I'll read it, but just to be absolutely clear here, I'm not going to turn off the cam and goon. That is not what's going to occur. I am going to go to the gym, just to be clear, and I'm not going to goon there either. So, Testicle Johnson, this is defamatory. This is what you're doing right here.
You should sue him.
Testicle Johnson, also, I've dropped a pin. Meet me for the goon up.
And also, again, another reason why I don't feel discriminated against so far, it's like, because like whatever the company that I wrote about, it's literally a women's health company. So I think if there was going to be any sort of discrimination, it would have probably happened there. And they're also like 80% women, as they say in their diversity statement of the company. But I don't want to keep you from your gym, because I think that's important. I think you should continue doing that. Good for your health, and I don't want to get in the way of your health.
Yeah, I'll read this. This is a long article.
Yeah, it's about a 30 minutes.
Could I say, because you've got, whether I read the whole article or not, I'm definitely listening to the whole audio clip. For sure. Nobody's missing that. That's hot fire. If you get fired and the audio genuinely does make the case without having to read a whole article that makes the case on itself that you got fired for over qualification, and the whole thing they're saying is diversity statement when you are a minority of the staff by the capital M meaning of the word, not the the lowercase m, not the capital M meaning of the word, then it's good content, 100%. I'm excited, brother.
I'd be curious on your perspectives on it. And like, yeah, again, it's up to you if you want. But if you feel like it's defamatory, then I would absolutely I would change it, or I would not publish it further. But so far, it's been opened. I don't know if it's been read, but it's been opened 450 times, and the number keeps growing and growing.
How many lawyers do they have? I'm sorry. It's a good joke, though. I don't want you to get sued. I don't think that you should get sued. Let's say it that way. And not from how you described it. If you are being safe, I just hope that it doesn't become something where this goes viral and then you suddenly become the guy that's too dangerous to hire, because what if somebody aggrieves him? He's going to write an article, quote unquote, and get away with saying negative things about our company, which I think, could go either way.
Wasn't this explored in like Mad Men, that one scene, right? Why I'm Quitting Tobacco. Have you guys all seen that show?
I have not.
It's a good episode.
Well, so
not enough women.
I also include in the narrative of I'm all about I align with Lactoid of I think transparency is overall a good thing, and sunlight is the best disinfectant overall, generally speaking. I'm I want this not only did I publish it for my own, whatever, I guess, selfish purposes, but also like to potentially warn other people, like, hey, this might happen to you. So just know what you're getting into.
Also, just to be clear, if they fired you for some kind of like protected reason, then maybe you could sue them. That's just maybe something you want to look into as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if they do end up, bring it on. You know, I'm not a multi-million-dollar company, but I have access to more resources than they might think.
I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say that. Oh man!
I want it all out there. Like, go ahead, whatever. Sue me into the ground. I don't care. If I end up being.
Oh no! Okay.
No. I know Lacto doesn't say.
Your Honor, he asked for it.
No, my client. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you're a free man, Corey. For now.
I'll be a martyr. Whatever. It is what it is.
All right.
Okay, Toyd, you bouncing?
Yeah, I'm bouncing. Really appreciate you guys. Good conversation. Yeah, and racism bad. I know, it's crazy. Anyway, catch you guys later.
Take care. Always a pleasure, Lactoid. And if you choose to read, it's up to you. But I would appreciate your feedback if you have.
Yeah, and also Tuna. Before I go, Tuna, Corey, I'm on panels with you a lot, and I love it. But Tuna, I'm very rarely on panels with you. How often are you doing panels these days? Are you doing it? Are you just busy, or are you just?
I'm busy. I mean, if you look at the construction happening in the back, so I have a little bit more work on this. I'm prepping this house for sale. So I have a full-time job followed by essentially another full-time job. So I've been doing streams as spot touching. I've got streams that I'm doing with Fairy Queen on Tuesdays, usually at around 7 p.m. We got to talk about the next one that we're going to do. And then I, every once in a while, will hop on for a panel or a talk here or there. But I'm thinking 3 months from now is when I get full ownership of my life. 2 months from now, hopefully I'll be able to have partial. But it's one of those things where I moved up in my job, and now while I get paid more, I also work about 9 hours of actual work every single day, as opposed to what it used to be, which was like do all of my 8-hour shift in 2 hours and then spend 6 hours writing out plans, making preparations for streams and things. So I'm slacked for time, sadly, and energy, sadly.
So but you do streams on Tuesdays usually, and
yeah, on Tuesdays usually. We have so that's on Twitch. Tuesdays, it's on my channel. I think that hopefully going forward, at some point we're going to be able to have it so that it's on YouTube on Fairies at the same time. And we have a podcast called Thought Farm, where basically we take something that is currently being discussed, and we treat it like a seed for thought. We go into a slightly deeper exploration of something that's either being discussed as a meme or something that's happening in the news. So we did one on this, common question of whether of like the Oedipus complex and whether or not people are perverts that want to have sex with their father or mother or any weird stuff like that. And then we also have done something much more pedestrian as a concept, like just covering the vice presidential election. So it's got a little bit of approachability from both different angles.
Okay, and is that just twitch.tv/TunaChip?
Yep, /TunaChip. And go ahead, toss a subscribe there. Whenever we go live as Thought Farm, it is in the description. Whatever your phone alert is will tell you which one of the things it is. But if it's Thought Farm, it's on Tuesdays at 7 p.m.
I have the link. I put the link in the chat, and I'm going to link you as well, Corey. But when's the last time you streamed?
I was about 4 weeks ago, a month ago. I'm pretty sporadic, but I do stream.
Me and Corey did and I have the VOD still. I might be able to edit it down. One of my favorite streams I've ever done with Corey. I just wanted to ask him the question: do energy drinks actually have deleterious effects in the way that we assume, specifically for the caffeine amount, not the sugar amount? Like, do sugar-free ones, now that that's become like everybody's doing like a sugar-free energy drink at every like factory job in America, is that going to kill us all or something? And streamers too, obviously. That was a pretty good one. So he's done some good streams with me. I'm always excited to.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And also, to be fair, like you consume like 2 or 3. You consume like whatever. Lots.
Not
of
anymore.
caffeine. Oh, okay. But at the time,
I now work a 9 to 5, and as opposed to what I was doing before, which was a midnight to 8, which required way more stimulus. No conversations happening. Everybody. Half of my open secret for anybody that works a graveyard shift. It's an open secret because anybody that works it knows this. Half of the staff is fucking falling asleep for like 30 minutes at a time at almost all of those jobs. It's not possible to live a normal life without stimulant abuse, it seems. So, who knows? Turns out the sun is actually a valuable part of the human diet.
All right, we'll let you get to it, Lactoid.
All right.
Awesome.
These guys, good chat.
Have a good night. Thanks,
Bye,
man.
see you on Monday. Take care, everyone. Be well. Always a pleasure.
Bye.
See you soon.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Lactoid TV. We're going to go ahead and raid on out. We'll raid on out into Letha Waterkai, who's doing the Minds of Ecclesia. You guys can watch some cool debating there and have yourselves a good old time. For those of you who gave bits, subs, and follows, really appreciate it. Thank you as always. And yeah, nothing like a good old heated up race conversation to get the blood going. All right, have fun. Also, Testicle Johnson, fuck you.
People to send you money. They're technically donations, right? They're considered donations. When you're withdrawing your donations.
Yeah,
So
yeah.